This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy New Year, everybody. One final time in 2025. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, soon to be joined by Michael Remis and Connor Rabchak. I think you're all very well aware of what today is. It was the announcement of the Canadian men's Olympic hockey team for the Italy Olympics coming up in February. And if you missed it, I've got bad news for you Jet fans. Mark Scheifele did not make the cut and is not part of Team Canada. A really disappointing omission. I mean, I'm sure that is the main topic in and around Winnipeg Jet circles today. Huge congratulations to Josh Morrissey on being a member of the team. We're going to hear from Doug Armstrong, talk about the players that were selected, some of the more notable omissions, including number 55, and looking forward to having Marty Biron on as well to discuss what he thinks of the final roster for the Olympic Games. Jeff Hamilton's going to jump by as well. Michael, Connor, and I will spend plenty of time talking about it. And, of course, there is a game tonight. The Winnipeg Jets taking on the Detroit Red Wings, trying to get out of the league's basement before the clock strikes midnight tonight, beginning a quick 3-4 out east in Detroit, Toronto, and Ottawa over the next 4 days. Welcome to everybody in chat. T-Will, this might be the super chat of the year. First of all, thank you very much for the generous super chat, T-Will. The real snub? No Logan Stanley. Miscarriage of justice. We want hashtag Team Stanada. Stan's had a nice year. I hope they didn't see that play against the Oilers on Monday. That might have been what took him off the list. I don't know. But T-Will, good stuff. Appreciate that. And hey, a huge Happy New Year and thanks to all of our sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Our friends at Coolbet Canada. Jake's going to pop by later on. We'll take a look at the upcoming NFL action and what is to be determined in Week 18 towards the end of the program. And don't forget, January 7th, next Wednesday, I guess that's a week today, is your last chance to qualify for the January 12th final for the trip to Costa Rica with myself and Jeff Hamilton. 8 p.m. next Wednesday is the final tourney over at Coolbet. Stay tuned to Winnipeg Sports Talk and our social channels for details or send us a message on how you get in on that. Also want to thank the Winnipeg Jets. Don't forget, folks, next Friday, the 9th, the Jets are hosting the Los Angeles Kings. It is après-ski night. First 5,000 fans getting those Winnipeg Jets ski goggles. And we are doing another WST game of the month for that Friday nighter. So why don't you get over winnipegjets.com/WST. Grab your tickets. We will have early entrance for that one, which if you do come early enough, should guarantee you one of the 5,000 pairs of the ski goggles that'll be given out. So winnipegjets.com/WST for that. Also want to thank Princess Auto, Chud's Power Sports. We've got our all snub Chud's Power Sports Power Pole coming up for you in a few minutes. Manitoba Battery, Clean Line. We will hit the Clean Line lines for tonight's game with the Jets and the Detroit Red Wings. Rolly's Transfer, St. Vital Dental Center, Canadian Club, Uptown Alley, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug. And of course, the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. And just before I bring the guys in, I will hit you with the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp. And it is simply this. We know that Jet fans are gutted for Mark Scheifele, or many of them are. But what do you think of the Olympic team, The job that Doug Armstrong and his staff did in putting it together. In addition to your thoughts on Scheifele being omitted, who do you like? Who maybe were you surprised at? Let us know. We'll get to fan feedback throughout the program today on the program. Fellas, come on in. We spent a lot of time this week talking about the Olympic team, and I know everyone watching what Mark Scheifele's done for this franchise through his entire career, but especially the way he's played last season and this year with the team on his back. Reem, it was really disappointing, but I can't say it was maybe all that surprising. The more we heard from guys that were kind of in the know about, mentioning who would be on and who wasn't getting mentioned when it was coming to the final Team Canada roster.
Yeah, wasn't expecting him to be named. Doesn't mean I don't think he's deserving. You look at scoring leaders among Canadians this season, last season. He's played for Team Canada before, how he's performed in the playoffs where he's really elevated his game. Certainly a player who's more than capable of being on Team Canada, but wasn't named to the Four Nations, was an alternate and wasn't named to this team, and feel very disappointed for Mark Scheifele. And I think ultimately they had some of the guys from the Four Nations that they wanted to keep. And, they were asked, or Doug Armstrong was asked about Bo Horvat and Nick Suzuki, who play center, and he noted their two-way game, 200-foot game, noted the versatility, noted Horvat's ability in the face-off circle. I think he just fell just short in those areas. So this is very pumped for Josh Morrissey. Gutted for him not able to play in that final when he was sick in bed. I mean, horrible situation. You hope that he's able to take home gold here with Canada. But we were not surprised that Josh Morrissey's on. Disappointed for Mark Scheifele. What a great season. I don't think there's anything more he could have done. He elevated his game this year. They just don't like him. They just don't want him on the team, ultimately.
Connor?
Yeah, I think where the disappointment lies for me, Huss, is, you can look at the Chicago Blackhawks fan base and they're complaining about Connor Bedard being a snub from the team as well. But Bedard's going to be on Team Canada for the next 15 years. That's not a question. He's going to have more opportunities. Mark Scheifele's 32, turning 33 this year. How many more opportunities does he have? There's going to be the 2028 World Cup and then the 2030 Olympics. And, he's creeping later and later into his 30s there. That's maybe where the biggest disappointment lies for me. It's okay, what more could Mark Scheifele have done? And he's not a 19-year-old that's going to have, 10 more cracks at a Canadian roster over the course of his career. This is maybe his final, time that he'll be on the bubble. And obviously he'll be trying to make that 2028 World Cup team as, a 34, 35-year-old. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of players there. Canada clearly wanted over Mark Scheifele to take players with a certain skill set. You see the Sorellis, Suzuki's, Horvat. They note the two-way game. Mark Stone, Brandon Hagel. They're trying to take these penalty killers, grinders at the bottom of the lineup. And then Canada didn't think that Mark Scheifele was better than any of the players that they have slotted in the top six, like Reinhart, McDavid, McKinnon, Celebrini, and Crosby, of course. So it's kind of a weird spot for Scheifele where we'd all think he'd play well with that skill because we see him every single day in Winnipeg and he's having an unbelievable year. But the biggest disappointment for me is that, he's 32, turning 33, and this might have been one of his, if not his last chance to play for Team Canada in a best on best.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I mean, at the Olympic Games, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, 4 years from now, it's going to be a very different landscape of hockey. This was his chance, and I think most Jet fans would agree that he'd done enough to put him in that mix to be amongst Canada's best. This is the official roster for everyone listening on the pod. Macklin Celebrini, no surprise, he really became a lock early on this season. Will be in contention for a Hart Trophy. It is interesting to note there are three players on this team that have more points than Mark Scheifele. It's Nathan McKinnon, it's Connor McDavid, and it's Macklin Celebrini, and that's it. Anthony Cirelli is back. There's your PK guy, towards the bottom. Hey, John Cooper likes his guys, right? The coach is the one that is going to play. He obviously had a big impact. Cirelli, Hagel, and Braden Point all back from the Tampa Bay Lightning. As part of this team. Sidney Crosby, of course, Captain Canada. Bo Horvat, an interesting addition to the team. We'll talk about him in a minute. We mentioned McKinnon. Brad Marchand. At the start of the year, I'll be honest, I didn't think Marchand would be on this team. He absolutely should be on this team. He's been incredible this season. When you think about what Florida's been able to do, really on the back of Marchand, getting back into it after that rough start without Barkov, without Matthew Tkachuk, there was no doubt that he'd be on the team. Mitch Marner is back. We mentioned McDavid, Point. You got Sam Reinhart as well as Mark Stone. Nick Suzuki will make his debut for Canada, the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, and Tom Wilson. Maybe making up for the fact that he should have been on the Four Nations team when they really could have used his physicality. He's going to be an Olympian. As far as the blue line goes, it is the exact group from the Four Nations. You had 7 defensemen, and then they had to add Thomas Harley. They're all back. Doughty, Harley, Makar, Josh Morrissey, Parayko, Sanheim, Theodore, and Taves. Notable omission there, Jacob Chikrin, who's having a monster year. 15 goals, 15 assists. He's left out. And, of course, phenom 18-year-old Matthew Schaefer not getting the call. And then the goaltending, and you know we're going to have a field day with this one talking about it. The first guy they announced, Doug Armstrong's guy. He of the .870 save percentage and 83rd of 84 NHL goaltenders this year on goals saved above expected. It is Jordan Binnington. He'll be joined by Darcy Kemper and the guy that is the clear leader in those statistics, Logan Thompson of the Washington Capitals. Reem, we'll talk a lot about Scheifele, and we'll get into this with Jordan, with both Hammer as well as Marty Biron. And maybe before we drop our Chud's Powers poll for snubs, who are a couple of the other guys that you thought might be on the team or in the mix that didn't find their name along with Mark Scheifele on the final roster on the outside looking in?
I think looking at the roster, the way it was built, the biggest snub by far has to be Sam Bennett. What did this guy do to not be on the roster this year? He was Conn Smythe winner. He was huge in the finals, scoring the tying goal. And they went with the exact same D group. You brought back Jordan Binnington, who is having a down year. Sam Bennett's played well. They don't have Barkov. What did he do? Why is he not on this team? How do you tell this guy after what he did at the Four Nations and how good he was? And I wasn't like a huge Sam Bennett guy that, hey, you're not on the team this year. We're picking other guys. That one, I wonder how that conversation went. That one for me really sticks out if I'm making the top snub list.
Connor, what about you?
Yeah, I'll just quickly comment on that. If Sam Bennett played for Tampa Bay and Anthony Cirelli played for Florida, you'd see Sam Bennett on this team, like 100%. Because there's no case that Anthony Cirelli has over Sam Bennett other than the fact that he plays for the Tampa Bay Lightning and John Cooper's the head coach. Like, that is quite literally the only case that Anthony Cirelli in New Year's Eve, December of 2025, that he has over Sam Bennett. But I'll go to the defense corps and I'll say Matthew Schaefer. I don't care that he's 18. This kid is one of the most dynamic defensemen in the entire National Hockey League already. And whether it's him or Evan Bouchard, which is another player that's getting brought up as a snub, I would have liked Canada to bring a Schaefer or a Bouchard as, maybe not a guy that's going to play in the top 4 and play a ton. Maybe they'll be a healthy scratch every other game, but just kind of a break glass in case of emergency player where it's just this super dynamic offensive threat that if you're down a goal or down 2 goals in a game, you can start playing Matthew Schaefer a lot more over a guy like Sanheim or Doughty or Parayko because you're chasing the game. You need that dynamic ability. You need that offense. And I think Matthew Schaefer, other than the fact that he's 18, showed so much this year that he deserved to be, or he is one of the best 8 defensemen in my mind that could have been taken on this Team Canada roster. So I'll look at the defense corps. I'll say Matthew Schaefer as a snub for me. He was on my team, and I would have loved to have him be on the roster. Maybe not a regular every single game, but just a guy that they can throw in and play even more if they're down a goal or 2 in some of these games and try and get back into it.
Yeah, I know. Listen, Mark Scheifele's at the top of my list. The other guy that if we're talking about production and producing this year, And it sounds like there's going to be a couple from the Dallas Stars that are on this list. But Wyatt Johnston is the only other guy right there with Scheifele ahead of everybody else on this team this year. Now, he's a younger player. He, like a Bedard, is going to have plenty of time, and I'm sure he'll be a mainstay in future years on this Canadian team. So he's not there. I mentioned Chychrun. And then on the goaltending side of things, you've got the combination. I mean, I think Mackenzie Blackwood's the more established guy. He hasn't played as much as Scott Wedgwood. Bottom line is both of them have incredible numbers this year. They simply don't lose. Now, they are benefiting from being on the best team in the league. But you know what the best teams in a lot of leagues have? Strong goaltending. They've lost twice this season in regulation, and the goaltenders certainly have a big part of that. Reem, do you have the graphic going up? Should we get into this right now?
Which graphic? Oh, no, I'll make our snubs list. No, I don't.
Okay.
I can do that right now. I'll finalize that.
Okay. We'll put that into after Marty jumps on with us. We'll do our official Chud's Power Poll.
Yes.
For the snubs. The other guy that I mentioned with Wyatt Johnston, Connor, that is rumored to not be on the U.S. Olympic team, is Jason Robertson. And I know Robertson wasn't great last year, and it maybe wasn't a shock that at that point he didn't get on the Four Nations team. Maybe he sort of played himself off. What he has done since then, especially this year, if what we're hearing is legit, and the States team won't be announced officially until some of the players join the Today Show on NBC, bringing you the Olympics on Friday morning to announce the team. Jason Robertson's omission, he has 20 goals in the last 23 games. Since the start of the 22-23 season, the Dallas Stars tweeted this out. He's first in points, in power play goals, he's second in goals. I mean, he's right there amongst any U.S. player. And that might be, as much as, we're talking about Scheifele here in Winnipeg, and there's a couple other key players that, were right there for the Team Canada roster. Jason Robertson, if he's not on Team USA, and from all accounts he's not going to be, that one might end up being the most shocking one of them all.
Yeah, Michael Russo from The Athletic reporting in an article that Bill Guerin, the GM of USA, says the hockey roster is set and they won't be second guessing any decisions. And that includes not having Jason Robertson on the team, which you mentioned the Dallas Stars tweet there. Since the start of the 2022-23 season, Jason Robertson, first in shots on goal among American skaters, first in points, second in goals, first in power play goals, and first in power play points, all among American skaters in the last number of seasons. So he would be a massive omission. And you look at the guys that they are projected to take. Again, it's all but set, but this is all a projection until, like you said, Huss, they head on to the Today Show. JT Miller's on that team. Vincent Trocheck is on that team. Like, those guys should not be on an Olympic best on best roster over Jason Robertson. So as much as we can sit here and talk about the snubs that maybe we felt on the Canada roster, leave it up to USA Hockey to maybe even leave Adam Fox off the roster as well. Like, sure, I'm all in for leaving Robertson and Fox at home as I sit here in my Canada hat. Hoping that Canada wins gold. Please leave those two very, very talented hockey players at home. And hopefully USA Hockey makes more wrong decisions than Canada did.
Yeah, I will say this. And again, I mean, today's kind of as much about the guys that didn't make it than it is about the guys that did. And, being a Winnipeg-based show, we'll be focusing in on Scheifele's omission, Josh Morrissey, where he fits in. I am incredibly excited to see Macklin Celebrini in this tournament. And the other guy that is a pretty significant omission from the Canadian side is Connor Bedard. And Bedard didn't have a great season last year. This year was absolutely phenomenal. And you look at what's happened to the Blackhawks since he's been out of the lineup, and it speaks, their record speaks for itself. I believe they've lost 8 straight. But I remember saying this on the show last year when he said no to Team Canada for the World Championships. I think the Canadian brass has long memories. And this is not to say that he's not going to have an opportunity later on. But, and I mean, Doug Armstrong said injuries did not play a role in this. They were sort of given the out at the press conference. Hey, I know Bedard's been hurt. Was he close? And he kind of basically said, "Oh, we don't want to talk about the guys that that aren't on the team. We want to talk about the players that are on the team." Shout out to Jesse Pollock for asking about Scheifele. But we've got a group of guys that listen. Bedard is right there with the rest of these individuals. Celebrini on, absolutely deserved it. But it was funny how they said, well, Bo Horvat had a great world championships and played with McKinnon and those guys there. And that was a big part of why he was in the mix. And so people said, well, it's too bad Scheifele hasn't won anything. Well, they won a President's Trophy and they were busy in the playoffs last year when the World Championships was happening. So he didn't have the opportunity to go over and because they were getting things done in the National Hockey League. So anyways, that is it's a tough day for fans of Scheif, and we're going to talk to Marty Biron about that, as well as the guys that are in and the guys that are out. And we'll have more with Remis and Connor as we continue the program today. Marty's going to join us in just a couple of minutes here on the program. Hey, listen, Happy New Year to all. And as we get into 2026, it's a little cold in January. Why don't you head on down to Uptown Alley for some great winter fun for kids of all ages. Uptown Alley, I spent some time over the holidays there. Just an absolute blast. 10-pin bowling, 5-pin bowling, great arcade, tons of games where you can win tickets for awesome prizes, and absolutely amazing food and drink options. It's the best place to have birthday parties, whether it's for kids, for teens, or adults. And an amazing setup for group and corporate outings of all kinds. Don't forget about that bowl and play special after 9 o'clock every day. 90 minutes of bowling and a $10 arcade card for only $20.49 for 5-pin, $22.49 for 10-pin. And, of course, you can find them online at uptownalley.ca or 488-0000 to make reservations or to book a group or party at Uptown Alley. Happy New Year from our friends at Rolly's Transfer. For any of you that have a move going on in 2026, make sure to holler at the gang at Rolly's to take care of all of it. They're family owned and operated for over 60 years and the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. And we'll give you the white glove treatment and service that they've been famous for now into their 7th decade. If you're hitting that request and estimate feature, make sure to put in the promo code WST for a special discount and moving services and moving supplies. A very happy New Year from Rolly's Transfer to all of you for 2026. It also goes for our friends at St. Vital Dental Center coming out of the holidays back to business. If you're looking for a new home for you and your family for the best in dental services in Winnipeg, lean on St. Vital Dental Center. They've been doing it for generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans and have a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's Road with state-of-the-art equipment and incredible staff and convenient free parking right behind the building. Whether your client is 6 months or 99 plus, they can take care of it all, from cleanings and checkups to things like dental implants. Dr. Terry and the gang are waiting for you at St. Vital Dental Center. See them online at stvitaldental.ca. Make an appointment. Tell them the boys that Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And a big Happy New Year to all of you from our friends at Canadian Club. What a great festive holiday season it has been. And as we get into 2026, we wish you all the best from Canadian Club. And don't forget, if you're popping by your local Manitoba liquor marts or beer stores, you can still find the limited edition holiday Canadian Club Cranberry Ginger Ale. Just a phenomenal premixed cocktail ready to go. Crack it and pour it over ice and you were good to go. Heard so many great things about it. So if you didn't get a chance to try it on the holidays, grab it before it's gone at your local Manitoba liquor marts, as well as beer stores in 4-packs and 473 milliliter cans. And again, a big Happy New Year to all of you from our friends at Canadian Club. All right. The roster is set. We know who'll be wearing the red and white in Italy for Team Canada. And Our pal Marty Biron joins us now to break down the roster. Marty, Happy New Year, my friend. Best of the season to you. What's going on?
Happy New Year to you guys as well. What's going on is we're getting a ton of snow dumped on us in Buffalo right now. So I'm taking a break from plowing and shoveling and come in and warm up and talk hockey with you guys. And and then the Sabres are playing tonight, New Year's Eve in Dallas. So going for 10 in a row. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I just quickly, just before we dive into the Canadian Olympic team, the Sabres, the Bills have one more game in their old stadium, and then it's the playoff time. But are the Sabres kind of getting back into the mix of sports fans in Buffalo? What an exciting run they're on.
They never so it was funny because Joe Andreessen is a Buffalo-born Bills player, right? And he's a linebacker. He doesn't play out ton, but anyway, we had him on the broadcast earlier this year, and it was funny. He says Buffalo is a hockey town that has a football obsession right now. And I think that the fans here always will be hockey fans and Sabres fans, but it's been hard the last 14 years, obviously. But now the Bills are definitely, Bills Mafia is going crazy. But like the first game of the year this year, packed house, right? It was fun. There was a vibe. There has been some great games at home that the Sabres have played that the fans have been on top of it and reacting to it. It's been fun. Now that the streak is going, like I was plowing, there's a guy pulled up next to me. He goes, "Are you going to be on the air tonight?" He's yelling at me in my car. And I'm like, "Yes, 7:30 pregame, 8 o'clock. Dallas is going to be a good one." He's like, "I'll be watching." So I think it's getting to that, but obviously when you win 9 in a row, it's going to get everybody's attention.
Well, I mean, listen, there's no fan base that deserves it more than the people of Buffalo, and it's been really cool to see that turnaround.
I'll say Winnipeg and Buffalo are very similar in that way, right?
Oh, yeah.
Always trying to get there. I mean, the Sabres did go to 2 Stanley Cups in 75 and 99. They're playing Dallas tonight. Figure it out. The Brett Hull no goal should it count thing. But the Jets for years running into the Oilers and that division. And I think they're very similar in Winnipeg and Buffalo.
Yeah, and then certainly the Central Division's no picnic right now with those 3 teams. All right, let's get to it. I mean, I'll ask you the question that everyone is asking here. Just thoughts on Mark Scheifele not making the team. He's 4th in scoring amongst Canadian players, I believe, right now. I mean, only Celebrini, Crosby, and McDavid have been more productive than Scheifele this year. Had a monster season last year. Seemed like he'd done everything he possibly could do to make the team. Why do you think he's not going to Italy?
I think it probably came down between Scheifele and Suzuki. So you have to kind of fill roles, right? And you're looking at the roster. Okay, so you've got McDavid as a center. You got McKinnon as a center, probably playing Crosby on the wing. And then you have, I think John Cooper likes his Tampa guys, and that's fine. Like he likes, Point was going to be on the team. Hegel, I think, was going to be on the team. It was coming down to Cirelli, and I think he likes Cirelli as a 4th-line center, can trust him, kill penalties, whatever. Okay, so now you have the 3rd-line center spot open, and you're looking at who's filling in on the wing, right? And so you're looking at 2 players, Nick Suzuki and Mark Scheifele. It's hard to say. I think I would have put Suzuki ahead of Scheifele, and I think Team Canada put Suzuki just ahead of Scheifele. But do I think Scheifele is a better player than Anthony Cirelli? Yeah. Do I think Scheifele is better than Bo Horvat? Yeah. But I think it came down to roles. And look, if Canada goes out and wins gold medal, they made the right decision. If they go out and don't get a gold medal, then it's like, well, you should have had Scheifele on the team. Just like last year, Team USA with Kyle Connor. What were you doing not playing Connor in the finals? But if they win, you made the right decision. But if they lost, obviously they made the wrong decision. So I think it comes down to the results. It was probably really close. It was close for me. I kept going back, Scheifele, Suzuki, Scheifele. And I think I settled on Suzuki, and that's probably what Team Canada did as well.
The Bo Horvat one is interesting to me. Why do you think Horvat is there? And if it came down to Scheifele or Suzuki, what made Horvat ahead of those guys? I mean, both guys are scoring at a far better rate. Horvat does have 21 goals. And Doug Armstrong mentioned sort of his ability to do things without a lot of room. I mean, is this a guy that's going to be banging in front of the net? Is that sort of the plan for Bo Horvat?
Maybe it is, but right now I don't even have Horvat as top 12 forwards, right? I have him and potentially Wilson as the extra to start the tournament. And maybe the goals are something that they're looking at and saying, okay, well, if at some point in the tournament we're not producing offense, we need more goals? Well, okay, well, Scheifele has like just 3 goals less than Horvat right now, I think. So it's like it's not that much of a difference. Maybe it's just a preference. Look, Scheifele got passed last year, got passed this year. Maybe they just don't have that good a vibe when it comes to Mark Scheifele, and that's what it is. When you build a team with that amount of quality players, sometimes there's going to be somebody that's going to say, hey, you know what? I like ketchup, mustard, and relish on my hot dogs. And somebody says, no, I like only mustard. And that's what it comes down to. I don't know why Mark Scheifele is not on the team. If he was on my selection, he'd be a top 14. He wouldn't have been ahead of Suzuki. And maybe that's, again, it comes down to, okay, well, who do you want as an extra? Horvat, Wilson. Wilson can come in and fight his way through if the Team USA wants to throw down like they did in the Four Nations or whatnot. Okay, and Wilson scored a ton of goals this year, so fine. I mean, it works. The Horvat one is puzzling to me. That's probably the one that I think Scheifele could have been in that spot.
Yeah, I can't help but think that some of this is the way Hockey Canada does business and the importance that they put on NHL players going to the World Championships. And I'll mention Horvat, who was there, had a good tournament, and that was sort of referenced when they mentioned him being on the team. And Connor Bedard not being on the team. And Bedard's had a monster season. You see what's happened to Chicago since he's been out, Marty. But it was quite noteworthy that when Bedard said no to Team Canada last year, put it this way, I said on the show, I thought it was an insane thing to do. I didn't think it was going to help him long-term. And after such a miserable season, I thought getting out there with the likes of Crosby and McKinnon and Macklin Celebrini, who's on the team, would have been really beneficial for him. I mean, whether we're talking about Bedard or Bo Horvat, how much of that is a part of the final decision-making of the guys that are in the Hockey Canada brass?
I mean, I think it does play a little bit, especially if you're on the bubble, right? Like Crosby and McKinnon going last year, they were going to be on the team. It didn't matter. But for years, remember, like it was Ryan Smith, Captain Canada. I mean, I went to the World Championship in 2003 and we won, and Ryan Smith was there, and you knew that anytime Canada was going to call for, anybody to be either Olympics or World Championship or World Cup or whatever, he was going to get the call. He was there. I can't say that for, let's say, Scheifele, that played into it, because as you were saying before I came on, look, I mean, he's busy. He's in the playoffs. So you can't, you can't fault a player for being in the playoffs and saying, well, you didn't go to the World Championship. They didn't ask him. I mean, he went to the second round. There's no room. There's no opportunity for him to go. But I think for Connor Bedard, it may have played a little bit. I thought that was a little bit. I made that same stupid decision one year. I had Lanny McDonald call me in 2002 and said, Marty, we'd love for you to be on the World Championship team. And I said to Lanny McDonald, of all people, I said, Lanny, I appreciate it. It's flattering. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to decline. I'm I don't have a contract for next year, so I got to figure that out first. I'm getting married this summer. There's a lot going on. And then, I look back at it, and I'm like, what was I thinking? And I turned down Lanny McDonald and Team Canada at the 2002 World Championship right after an Olympic year, and I was starting to grow I'm like, I should have said yes. And then the next year I went, and it was great, but looking back, that was the stupidest call that I took, and the answer that I gave, like Lanny McDonald, and I joke with him when I see him at the Hall of Fame or whatnot. I'm like, I said no to you. He goes, Marty, I remember that. Not the brightest response and whatever. So it's, but I think Connor Bedard's going to look back and Probably think, I probably should have gone. Now, do I think that his performances this year put him in a conversation? Yeah. And you said Chicago has been nothing like they were at the start of the year. Him and Frankie Nazar out is bad for them. But I think he would have been on the out, and maybe the World Championship would have helped him get in. But who else do you take now? Like if Connor Bedard is in, who else do you take out of that lineup? It's a pretty strong lineup.
Well, what do you think about the likes of taking, I mean, Cirelli, for instance? I mean, essentially a bottom six player when you have all of these other incredible Canadians that may play different roles, but I mean, that's great if you got a 2-goal lead. I mean, what if you need to score a goal? Not that there's not a lot of guys that can't do that right now, Marty, but, we've seen before some very dubious selections from Canada. I mean, I think of Rob Zamner a few years ago, and I mean, when you don't win the gold medal, I mean, people have long memories of those. Is this a matter of just appeasing the coach and saying, hey, these are the guys that are obviously on the team. How do you want to see the rest of it made up? And that would be a big influence from the guy that's behind the bench.
I think the guy behind the bench likes certain guys. When I went to the World Juniors, and we're talking World Juniors, it's that time of year. I remember Mike Babcock was our coach, and he brought in 2 or 3 guys from his, I think he was coaching in Spokane back then, and guys that I had never heard about. Like, they weren't going to be first-round picks. They weren't going to be, and I'm like, what are these guys doing? But they were role guys, and he wanted them on his team. I think John Cooper's doing the same thing here. And I can't fault John Cooper because he did win the Four Nations face-off last year. He won a couple of Stanley Cups recently with those guys. He knows that they can perform under pressure at the highest of level in the biggest stage, and he's comfortable with it. So I think there is a little bit of favoritism that gets played when it comes to that. But we can also remember when Steve Yzerman did not pick Marty St. Louis, and that was a big, like, oh, St. Louis was not happy, right? And that also, you don't want that on your team. Like, I don't think Cirelli would be angry at John Cooper, but John Cooper's got to think, I have a good team this year, and I want to win another cup, and I got to make everybody happy. I think it plays in a little bit. But at the end of the day, if you win, everybody's happy. If you lose, they're going to go and criticize every single decision you made. That's just part of the deal.
Yeah, you know what? I see Remis is giving me a hard time. Zamner a few years ago, that was 1998, 27 years old. But that's what I'm saying. People have long memories. When you pick guys like that and don't win. Right?
They lost in the shootout to Czech Republic. And at the time, we remember, like, Gretzky did not go in the shootout. That was against Dominik Hasek. So, but if you win and you win gold, then you say, well, Gretzky, there was other players that maybe were better than him for shootout, but they ran into Dom, and Dom ended up beating Russia. What was it, 1-0, I think, in the final gold medal game. So that's, that's pretty crazy.
Mark Crawford probably still doesn't go through a week of his life without getting asked about that. Marty, before we get to the goaltending, let's move to the blue line. And I mean, it's just status quo. It's the exact same group that they had at the Four Nations. Of course, Thomas Harley was a mid-tourney addition based on injuries, cut his vacation short to come out. To be honest, I mean, he's surprisingly, I think, a minus player on Dallas. Like, it hasn't been an amazing season for him. We've seen this brilliance of Matthew Schaefer. Jacob Chikrin's having a huge year for the Washington Capitals. What did you make of just standing pat with that Four Nations Defense Corps group? And was there a guy or two that you were surprised that wasn't included on the team?
I mean, I looked at Matthew Schaefer and I thought, this could be a really good story. Having Celebrini and Schaefer, 2 guys that could be playing in the World Juniors, by the way, and get named to the Olympic team, like, that'd be pretty cool. Give him the experience of what it is to go to the Olympics. The NHL players have not gone to the Olympics since Sochi. So, that's a couple of Olympics that they've missed, and now they get back. And, Schaefer will be most likely on Team Canada in 4 years and 8 years down the road, especially if he continues the way that he is. I thought he could get there. I thought there was a spot for him. Now, who do you take out? That's the big thing. I think Thomas Harley earned his spot, although I thought Travis Sanheim maybe was going to be one that was going to be left off. You do have Parayko and Morrissey and Theodore, Makar and Taze, obviously they're there. I was going to give Drew Doughty his spot on the team. That's fine. But I thought if you have, Schaefer in there, maybe Chikrin, probably in the place of Travis Sanheim. But again, you got to also know who played well last year, lefty, righty, who seems to have chemistry together. I think that they decided not to change it because they played well defensively. They were a good group on the blue line, and nobody really lost their spot this year. Like, there was nobody that you can look and say, they are not playing at the level you would want them to, so nobody really fell out of favor.
One other guy I wanted to actually ask you about was Mark Stone. And, of course, he's a Winnipeg guy, and there's a lot of people that'll be pumped for him. He's been productive. Yeah. He's been out a little bit so far this season, but it did seem at the Four Nations, which was the fastest brand of hockey that the sport has ever been played in the sport, that it was maybe a little quick for him. Mm-hmm. What do you make of Stone's inclusion on the team, and what's his role?
Well, his role is going to be, for me, a bottom six guy, maybe a third line guy that's going to be responsible defensively. You're right. Like, earlier in the year, I would do my own like Team Canada projection, and I didn't have Mark Stone on. And then he came back, and then all of a sudden I look and I'm like, look at the production this guy's putting. And Vegas is banged up. They don't have the players. They got a lot of injuries, and Mark Stone keeps producing and keeps being in the box score and keep scoring goals. And I'm like, okay, I got to really think of Mark Stone. And you're right. He's not the fastest. I did play with a lot of players that were so smart that made sure that they could overcome that. At the NHL level, he struggled a little bit at the Four Nations faceoff, but that is another player that you won with, that has won a Stanley Cup, that understands what it takes, how to handle, the media, the pressure, the family being around, the distractions. He's done it. He's done it multiple times. I mean, Vegas is probably the most distraction city in the world, and he's done it. So maybe that's where you take a guy like Mark Stone and you say, yeah, I'm going to like this. I'm going to put him on my team. I didn't have him on my team earlier. Maybe I had Connor Bedard in there before Mark Stone, and then maybe in the last few weeks it changed. Mark Stone was back on my team. So I like that he was able to produce. If he hadn't produced, he wouldn't have been on the radar at all for me. He's got 9 goals and 21 assists in 21 games, 31 points. And he is, Odog on the TSN broadcast today said, hey, 3 minutes left in a game that you're winning. Do you want Connor Bedard out there taking care of the lead, or do you want Mark Stone? And I guess I can sort of understand that. If you need a goal, you got McDavid, McKinnon, you got Crosby, you got Celebrini, you got those guys out there. If you're up a goal and you need to kill the clock, you're going to have Cirelli, Hagel, going to have Suzuki, Stone. Those are the guys you're going to put out there.
Yeah, and I do think that Mark, being a captain, having won so many different things in a cup, and obviously, with the Four Nations, is also a guy that if he wasn't in the lineup would be, still a good asset to the team. They would know exactly what they get out of him. There'd be no attitude about it. So it'd be interesting to see that. Wilson is the other guy that I did want to ask you about, because it is important to remember that this is double IHF rules.
Yes.
This is not the Four Nations face-off. There will not be fighting in this event. Now, he had 33 goals last year. He's an incredible physical presence. He's got more. He's on a 40-goal pace this season. Yeah. So I actually do believe that he's earned his way onto this team. But I do wonder what the fit is. Is he going to be up playing, potentially with a McDavid or one of those guys, and kind of a unique, kind of real physical presence, size, get in front of the net, work with that? Or is he going to be essentially like a fourth line guy, or as you said, maybe an extra to start the tournament?
Potentially an extra to start the tournament, but I do believe that at the end of the day, it was probably down, for me anyway, between Sam Bennett and Tom Wilson. Which one do you take? You can't take both. There's no room to have both of them. The U.S. will have both Tkachuks on the team, and if the Tkachuks want to, be the Brash brothers and run around, then you may have to have other guys step up, right? Maybe it's Drew Doughty, and maybe it's Colton Parayko. Maybe it's somebody that's going to step up with Tom Wilson. Maybe it's Marchand, maybe whatever. But I think it came down to Bennett or Wilson. I think you have more upside with Wilson in the scoring. He's bigger, he's stronger. Now, Bennett was there that had to be a really tough conversation to say, Sam Bennett, you are going to be left off the Olympic roster when he was such a big part, in my opinion, of the Four Nations face-off win last year.
He scored the tying goal. He won the Conn Smythe back-to-back cups.
But he didn't start the year good. He didn't. And Tom Wilson did. And then all of a sudden I got to pick one of them, right? I mean, that's what it is. It's kind of like Suzuki Scheifele. It was Wilson Bennett. Well, it fell on the Wilson side. And, maybe in 3 weeks from now, we would say, they probably would have wanted Bennett and not Wilson. But the decision needed to be made before the new year, and the rosters needed to be announced, and that's what it is. But I think Wilson, you get him in if all of a sudden you need a little bit more physicality, you need a net front presence. Maybe it comes in for Stone. If Stone is not playing well, maybe that's where Wilson fits in. If Marchand gets banged up, maybe that's where Wilson gets in. Like, that's where I see him, a little bit lower in the lineup. I don't see him taking the spots of anybody in the top six.
Marty Biron's with us, breaking down Canada's Olympic team. Let's get to your area of particular expertise, the net. There's been much consternation about the goaltending position for Canada in relation to their opponents in this event. Yes. For the Four Nations, they had Aiden Hill, they had Sam Montembeault, and Jordan Binnington. Hill's been hurt this year. Montembeault and Binnington have been two, by every measure, of the worst goaltenders in the league. If you dive into goals saved above expected, there's 84 goaltenders that have played. Linus Ullmark was 84th, just took a leave of absence. Jordan Binnington is 83rd. It's been a disaster this year for him in the net. Are you surprised that he's on the team, and would you have put Jordan Binnington on the 2026 Olympic team?
I'm not surprised that he's on the team, and I had Jordan Binnington on my team. I said his experience from last year, his experience from winning the Cup, could be very valuable to the team, to the group of goaltenders. The caveat here is that I don't have him playing game one against Czechia. I don't have him backing up. For me, there has been two guys that I had on my list that I think Team Canada had the same two guys. It was Logan Thompson, who to me has been the best Canadian goaltender in the last year and a half. They did not take him to the Four Nations face-off last year, probably because it was a small sample. Oh, we've only seen October, November, maybe that's going to fall off a cliff. Oh, you know what? That didn't fall off a cliff. And that continued this year. So they had no choice but to take Logan Thompson. In performance alone, he is the best Canadian goaltender this year. Now, I think the other spot, I had Darcy Kemper. I think that winning a cup weighs in. I think that he's been very, very good to excellent with the LA Kings the last year and a half. A lot different than when he was with the Washington Capitals. So, but the cup is still few years removed. It was with the Avalanche, but still, he won a cup. He's been really good with LA, been in the playoffs. That all counts. Mackenzie Blackwood was the other one that I thought could get there. I think Blackwood, Kemper, kind of the same thing to me, but Kemper has the cup. Blackwood, doesn't. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go Thompson, Kemper, and then Jordan Binnington as the guy that, let's see, you're in trouble. You lost a couple of games. Goaltending's not great. You want to go to Binnington and say, go in. He's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder, and he's going to be that guy that's just, want to show the world, right? I think that works. But if you were to go to the Olympics, with 3 goalies that have never really played at the international level, like Four Nations or Olympics, I think you're not helping yourself. So Binnington, part of the group with Thompson and Kemper, was what I had, and that's what Team Canada had as well.
Yeah, I echo your thoughts. I kind of thought that he'd be on the team, and like first and foremost, Doug Armstrong's his general manager, and we talked about John Cooper.
If you don't take him, you better trade him.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
That's exactly.
And maybe he will be traded because Joel Hofer is playing better than him right now, but that's the problem you run into.
That's the funny. I mean, if you're Joel Hofer, you're like, hey, Doug, I'm the guy that earned the job
I'm
right here.
I'm Canadian too.
Yeah, no doubt. But there's people, including Dreger, who's pretty tied in, saying that they think that Jordan Binnington will be the starter for Canada in Game 1.
Yeah.
What would you like? How would that be received? Within the team and within that goaltending group, when there's one guy that is clearly more deserving of being the number one based on the last 2 years of actual play outside of the gold medal game.
I think he'd be fine. Look, whatever decision they're going to make, it's a tournament. Everybody wants to win. You go out, you perform, you win. Once again, everything is fine. I think I compared this a little bit to, look, when you're in the American League, you look around, you're like, I'm better than this guy. I'm better than that guy. Oh, this guy got called up, and look at what he's doing. Like sometimes when you go from one level to another, the game is different. And by the game being different, some guys will perform different. Look, I have my question mark when it comes to Logan Thompson, because he's such a freewheeling type of goaltender. Not sure what to expect, right? When the game is going to be at that level, super fast, with the quality of shooters and passers. Maybe you're going to need a guy that's a little bit more technical, that is more about inside the crease, that is, the foundation is a little bit better, which that's what Darcy Kemper is. So, but I don't think it would be a problem. I don't think you're going to ruffle any feathers if you say Jordan Binnington is my starter Game 1. That's not who I would go. And maybe my mind thinks backwards. I'm thinking if things go well, you ride with the goalie that you have, and that's fine. But you have to have a contingent plan on if things don't go well. If you could start with Binnington and you lose to Czechia, and then you have Binnington in Game 2 and you lose, and now you're like, okay, what do we do? You're going to go with somebody that has zero experience at that level. So that's the where I'm at right now, where my brain thinks. I'm thinking of, plan B and plan C. And maybe I should just focus on plan A and say, this guy's going to go in and win and everything will be fine. But I always think of the other plans in my head.
Well, the only thing I'll counter to that is if you make the wrong decision and you start 0-2 at the Olympics, it might be a short tournament.
Yes, but all the teams are making it to the so-called medal round, right? There's 12 teams. The top 4 are advancing to the quarterfinals, and the other 8 teams are playing each other to go to the quarterfinals. So if you have a bad start, you're basically adding 1 game to your schedule. You're not all of a sudden, oh my goodness, yeah, you're going to play top competition because you may not get the easier matchups. But at the end of the day, when you think about US, Sweden, Czechia, Finland, like they're all top teams, especially at that level. You're going to have anybody can win. So I think you have time to kind of get through it and figure out what's the best way to go. And then if it didn't work, well, it's not like you all of a sudden are out, right? There's not 4 teams that are going to be fighting for relegation. It's not like the World Championship.
Hey, before we go, Marty, now we don't know the U.S. team until Friday morning officially. But there's some guys that are pretty plugged in, Michael Russo being one of them, that has kind of said who's they're expecting. And let's just go with that. It looks like Jason Robertson is going to not be on the team. He's got 20 goals in his last 23 games.
Crazy.
Nuts. But I wanted to ask you about a guy you see all the time in Alex Tuck. To me, Tuck is a guy that is so versatile, does so many things well, and scores at a really high rate. If he actually is not on the team, will that be an egregious oversight? Sounds like his teammate Tage Thompson is deservingly going to be on it.
Yeah, no, I don't think it would be an oversight if Alex Tuch's not on the team. I like his role, his production, everything that he does. And I think that was nice of Team USA to have him in the orientation camp last summer, wanting to see like what is all of a sudden Tuch just explodes the next year, right? So you got to have him ready. But I don't think he's at that same level as Tage and some of the other Team USA. I mean, if Jason Robertson's not on, like that's absolutely crazy to me. But again, like, yes, there is a lot of names that have surfaced now. Emily Kaplan has had some names that she's mentioned. Michael Russo, you mentioned. And I mean, by tonight, we may find out the whole USA roster, right? I think they're announcing it on the 2nd, but still, we may find out tonight or tomorrow. But I don't think it would be an oversight. Alex Tuch is a really good player, but to be at that level, I need the little bit more. I need the top guys, and I just feel like you got Matthews and you got the Kachucks and you got Thompson and you've got, so much talent on Team USA to say Alex Tuch will be fitted into that group.
Well, I just mean, when we're talking about some of these quote unquote role guys, I don't know if you could have a better guy to play a bunch of different roles on a team. And if a guy gets hurt, you need to move him up on a lineup. He'd be a guy that I would think of. But Robertson will be the one.
Killer, he's good. He had a bunch of shorthanded goals last year. Can play the power play. I mean, if he had made the team or if he was to be named on the team, I wouldn't be surprised. But you'd have to really make that strong argument that he's better than, and there's a lot more American players that I think I would put ahead.
Well, I mean, yeah, with some of the guys, Cole Caulfield, Logan Cooley, that seem to be on the outside looking in, it's probably similar conversations happening there. And heck, considering some of the decisions that they made at the Four Nations, maybe we shouldn't be surprised. Marty, thanks so much for the time. I know you got a game tonight. It's got to be fun again covering the Buffalo Sabres on this run that they're on. Great to see, and maybe they can make it 10 in a row and take down Dallas tonight.
That would be fun. Happy New Year to everyone. And yes, maybe the Jets can have a 9 or 10 game winning streak as well and get back into the conversation, because right now it hasn't been fun. And I cheer for them, but I love Scotty Arniel. He was my assistant coach in Buffalo. Love him. I mean, Eric Comrie was here. I got to know him pretty well. And there's so many great guys on that team. I just want to see them good. Yeah,
the New Year's resolution is to win every game in January. Get right back into it. Have a great one, Marty. Thank you again. You're the best.
See you later.
All right, there's Marty Biron with us. We'll have Reem and Connor jump back in a little bit later on. Jake from Coolbet's going to join us as well before the end of the program, and we will get to our Chud's Power Sports Power Poll. We're not doing the teams. We're doing the snubs today on the program. Do want to thank our friends at Princess Auto and wish them a happy New Year as we get into 2026. Folks, Princess Auto is the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete those projects on your list from 2025 or start some new ones for 2026 waiting for you at Princess Auto. 3 locations in Manitoba, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and of course out in Brandon for our friends in Westman. It's all there, but you can also get those wheels turning for 2026 and shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. Of course, our friends at Chud's Power Sports as well wish you all a happy new year. And if you are planning on maybe turning over a new leaf, getting a little more active, getting outside for 2026, Manitoba's Power Sports Superstore, Chud's Power Sports, is the place to start the new year. Head on up to Gimli, the corner of Highway 8 and 231, or check them out online at chudspowersports.com for the best in ATVs, UTVs, Polaris and Arctic Cat snowmobiles with great deals for the new season as well. Ice houses for ice fishing season. And of course, 12 months a year, the best in boats, street bikes, dirt bikes, tractors, golf carts, not to mention those wild Argo and Sasquatch vehicles. for taking care of the big business 12 months a year. I've also got a great site, truenorthparts.com, that you want to check out for the best in parts, whatever you need. Chuds is the leader in that. They've also got amazing clearance deals on gear and accessories, and we know how you all love great deals. Chuds Power Sports, dealership of the year from Snowman, Manitoba for their 50th anniversary, and 80 years in the business with the most trusted staff around. Get ready for the rest of winter at Chuds Power Sports for 2026. Happy New Year to Chuds. Check them out online at chudspowersports.com. And hey, as the teeth of the winter is here, you got to make sure, folks, that you're not that guy calling your buddy for a boost because your battery's dead. Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery are your local option with 2 Winnipeg locations where you'll find the best prices in batteries, period, beating the pants off the big box stores with the best in customer service from a locally owned Manitoba business. Free battery testing if you're wondering whether your battery's got the juice to get you through the next few months. And if you do need a new battery, you'll get the best prices in town, period. They've also got other great deals as we get into the new year on power sport batteries, booster cables, and of course, the ice fishing flasher battery kit for all of you folks that like to get out on the ice. For all your battery needs and the best prices in town, make it local, make it Manitoba Battery, Logan Avenue, Dovercourt Drive, and online at manitobabattery.com. All right, let's welcome in the Hammer, Jeff Hamilton, Winnipeg Free Press reporter, journalist, columnist, 3-time WST poker champion, and my pal that's going to be joining me and whoever wins on January 12th down in Costa Rica later on this month. Hammer, best of the season to you, and Happy New Year. What's going on?
Yeah, Happy New Year yet. Happy New Year's Eve to you, Huss. I think I'm going to try to make the most of what's left of 2025 so far, and hopefully everybody else follows suit. I'm not hanging it up as of yet.
Big plans tonight, going to the club. Going to be, like a big, I don't know, is the Tijuana Yacht Club still rocking on New Year's Eve? A big bash.
I almost feel like you'd have a better idea than me at this point.
I might.
I'm not sure about the nightclub scene here in Winnipeg. I know I hung that up ages ago. I think it was before the NHLers were back in the Olympics.
There's a special New Year's booty shake down at the PAL.
Yeah, totally. So maybe in honor of the NHL being back in the Olympics this year, I'll take full advantage of some of my old antics. Yeah, no, for sure. Let's move on, Huss, before we both get in trouble here.
No doubt. Listen, big story of the day, Canadian Olympic team. Mark Scheifele not on the squad. Having a monster season, coming off his best season as an NHLer. I feel terrible for him because this probably was his last chance to represent Canada at the Olympics with where he is. There's not going to be many more chances. What do you think of the decision, and why do you think he's not on the team?
Yeah, I think with Mark Scheifele, obviously it being big news here, whether he was going to make it or not, I think it was going to be a bit surprising either way. And, and that really is the essence of a bubble player, right? Because if Mark Scheifele's on the team roster or Team Canada roster, it's obviously celebration here in Winnipeg, and then the conversation shifts, maybe not here as much, but in other markets, who else didn't make it, right? That's really, look at what you guys are doing today. You're making your power poll or your whatever exactly it is on the snubs, because that's where the conversation goes when you have such a strong team. I mean, there are obvious players on that roster that were going to make it. We knew a handful of them based on, the early roster announcements to hype up the teams. And then we, the pieces were going to fall into place. And we were, you certainly got your value, Huss, with Winnipeg Sports Talk and discussing, who was going to be on Team Canada in those, throughout the last few weeks and months and really the last year, right? So I mean, yeah, it's got to be disappointing for Mark. I mean, to your point, there were a lot of things working for him. Obviously, not getting, a spot on Four Nations, called a snub there. he was asked to elevate his game, and you can make all the arguments, in favor of him for doing just that, particularly obviously on the ice, right? So, there were certain things, and I don't know if we had the conversation, Huss. I certainly, maybe we would have had it off mic, maybe on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I feel like I had this conversation with tons of family and friends, and particularly over the last few days here as the decision was kind of coming, was going to be made here today. So I think there was a lot of things, again, working for him, but there were other things working against him. And that, of course, being his age, right? I mean, when you look at, I know a lot of people like, what do you mean his age? It's about win now. Of course it's about win now, but some decisions get made where you do factor in, future Olympic teams and whatnot, right? There's, there obviously is the argument, Huss, and again, not going to be taken kindly in these neck of the woods, about what Mark Scheifele's won. Right. I mean, of course, you can point to the President's Trophy last year. Obviously, that's a team achievement. They've done some damage in the playoffs, not a ton. Been a good regular season team to be sure. But maybe some of that experience, right, is missing, some of that winning experience. Again, I know, there's obviously an argument to be made against that as well. And then when you look at some of the roster, Huss, you can kind of certainly make a case for why isn't Mark Scheifele on the team, right? So, like, there are players who I think that a lot of people had a lot of pundits out there, had they left Mark Scheifele off the roster, probably would have included some names that weren't on it. So there's certainly some head scratchers there. There's obviously different philosophies, Huss, that go into making this roster. It's not all about, taking the top Canadian, the top 12 Canadian scorers and putting them in a lineup. The other thing too, and this is, I don't even really like kind of like adding more reasons per se to why Scheifele shouldn't have been, or maybe justifies why he's not on the roster, because it feels like you're kicking a guy when he's down. But look at a guy like Tom Wilson right now, Huss. Go look up Washington Capitals daily faceoff. Like, he's carrying a line by himself. Look at the game today. He's got a goal and he fought. You know what I mean? Like, that's a guy who played his way onto the roster. He was scoring goals and he was proving he can do it without the top end players. And, again, I think you can look up and down Canada's roster and you can make the same argument against other players outside of Mark Scheifele. Why he didn't make it, I don't think we're ever going to really truly know. Team Canada is not in the business, as we saw today, to go and justify decisions or focus on players who are not going to be on the roster. But, Mark Scheifele, and what feels like a fairly long list, relatively speaking, of snubs, he's certainly deserving to be on that list as a bona fide snub of Team Canada this year.
Funny that you mentioned Tom Wilson. He's actually got 2 goals now today. He's up to 21 on the season. I can't help but thinking the Tom Wilson thing is sort of an admission that they blew it in the Four Nations not having him on the team. The funny thing is, there's no fighting in the Olympics.
But you know what, though? I think that's a fallacy, right? Like this idea that, and it's probably a reason why Sam Bennett's not on the team. Right? They don't need 2 of those players per se.
We talk about winning something. The guy's a back-to-back cup champ. He won the freaking Conn Smythe.
He was the
golden in the Four Nations.
He was the definition, Huss. I tweeted it out. He was the definition of Team Canada hockey in the Four Nations. Like, he embodied everything that, I feel like, and I don't want to say traditionalists, but true Canadian hockey fans with the big physicality. But that's the point too. Like, this argument that, well, there's no fighting in international hockey. Great. I don't, Tom Wilson and Sam Bennett are 2 players who go beyond their ability to drop the gloves and, pump people's eyes shut, which I know was a highlight for a lot of people in the Four Nations Cup, right? That's not going to happen at the Olympics. We're not going to get those kind of fireworks, but those players play hard checking games. Players don't like playing against Sam Bennett. They don't like playing against Tom Wilson, not because of the risk they're going to get, finish the shift with 2 black eyes. You don't have to fight in the NHL. So, but the other thing too, Hassan, I think what's been used against players like Tom Wilson and maybe Sam Bennett for these kind of international, events is that more often than not in the past, the ice has been bigger. So these kind of perceived slower players who play more of a physical, hard-checking game all of a sudden look out of place on the larger international ice space. Well, I'll remind anyone who isn't aware of it today that not only is the arena in Italy not international size as we're used to, it's actually smaller than an NHL-sized arena. So those skill sets that come with Tom Wilson, Sam Bennett, that hard-checking, hard-to-play against defensive style is all the more applicable in my mind with these Olympics. So I think those are great pieces. I think you can certainly look, Huss, at Anthony Cirelli as a guy who plays a similar position, clearly, is a guy that John Cooper likes, trusts, wants on the roster, because that's a player, I think, when you're looking up and down the lineup and you're a Jets fan and you're looking to get angry and you're looking for fuel for your fire, he's probably a guy you're zeroing in on. And that's kind of, to me, the way I, not justify it, but explain it would be that much like Sidney Crosby, right? Chris Kunitz back in the day, like, you like team chemistry, you like line chemistry, but that one, I think, to me, just, it's a tough one to swallow, I think, if you're a Jets fan, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if it really did come down to Scheifele and Nick Suzuki, I will give Suzuki the nod on his 200-foot game, and he's got 44 points in 31 games, so he's been very, very productive, as has Scheifele been so far this year. The Bo Horvat one is interesting to me. And Horvat has scored, I think he's got 20 on the season, or maybe 21, so a couple more goals than Scheifele. Certainly doesn't have the points. But I think back to, again, something that might not have helped Mark is having the season that he had this last year and being busy and being in the playoffs for the World Championships, because you heard Doug Armstrong today in the thing talk about how impressed they were with Bo Horvat at the World Championships. And, we want to talk about guys that have won things. I can assure you that Bo Horvat hasn't won a damn thing in the National Hockey League. And, he was a guy that took advantage of the opportunity, made a great impression, has had a real strong start to the year, and played his way onto the team after maybe sort of being more on the radar coming out of that experience. And then, speaking of World Championships, a guy like Connor Bedard, who by his performance this year on the ice, I would argue absolutely deserves to be on it. And he'll have many more chances to be on the team, so I'm not feeling too bad for him. But we all remember he had a rough season last year and then snubbed Team Canada and decided not to go. And I don't think it's a surprise that when it came down to, is he going to be on or off, that he was left off the team. While, a guy like Celebrini, who was there, obviously he was a lock. He's been brilliant. He's probably going to be in the Hart Trophy conversation at the end of the year. But a guy like Horvat, took advantage of that opportunity, and I think maybe put himself ahead of a lot of guys because he was on a team that didn't make the playoffs and answered the call for Canada at the Worlds.
I have a couple of theories on both those players. So let's start with Bo Horvat. So you mentioned, I think we have to take out of the equation, Huss. I know you've mentioned a couple times in the segments here. I do think it helped Bo Horvat that he went and played, the World Championships and played well in those tournaments. We've often heard that you don't want to turn down Team Canada, right? Especially if you're one of those players who isn't in a position to really turn down Team Canada. And a lot of players outside of a small few fall into that category. But I don't think it hurt Mark Scheifele in the sense that Mark Scheifele was in the playoffs, right? I don't think teams are like, okay, Mark Scheifele shafted us. Maybe they said that about Connor Bedard. We'll get into that in a second. But I think with Bo Horvat, where do you have Bo Horvat on your roster? Where do you have him?
As far as, I wouldn't have had him on mine.
As far as your forwards. I know, but right now, I know you didn't have him on. Where do you have him now?
Well, not in the top 6, so he's either an extra or he's playing center, or I guess maybe moving to the wing. If Suzuki
I guess my point though is,
yeah,
right. But my point is, is that not the exact place that you have Mark Scheifele?
Yeah.
That's my point. So if you think about having a player who's going to potentially be maybe in your lineup, maybe not in your lineup. And again, this isn't what do we know about Bo Horvat in the NHL? What do we know about him? What do we know about? What have we heard about? What have we heard about his exit in Vancouver? What have we heard about his, the fact that they didn't retain him, and look at where Vancouver's gone ever since then, right? And his leadership possibly. We don't hear that about Mark Scheifele. We don't. We see the skill, with Mark Scheifele. We see the undeniable ability to be a playmaker and score points. We don't hear about Mark Scheifele being like a great leader and a great locker room dude and all that stuff. We don't hear that he's a bad one necessarily, but he's not known across the league. And I wonder if
he was well liked by his teammates. I've never
for sure. I'm not saying he's
Horvat
disliked by his teammates. Like, that no one's saying he's a bad guy, but Bo Horvat,
for me, he was the captain of a team, and they decided, you know what, we'll let you go. You're gone.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying, and they've been lamenting it ever since, right? Like Bo Horvat, not like a JT Miller, wasn't leaving because the guy was an asshole. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't the point. They thought they could do better. They thought other players were more skilled, right? They felt that way, but it was never his leadership. And again, me saying that about Bo Horvat isn't trying to say Mark Scheifele is trying to add a negative to Mark Scheifele. I'm saying that's probably what teetered him to be in that decision-making, right? Along those other things, performing in the international level, all those other stuff. I think it came down to, when push comes to shove, what kind of personalities do you want in there? Maybe Bo Horvat fit that. Connor Bedard, this is my theory, Huss, is that, okay, you have Macklin Celebrini play the way that he played, so it wasn't like it was unprecedented that you could play your way on to the roster for age. Connor Bedard's having a very special season, right? He's having, everyone's talking about him. Obviously, he's up there with Mark Scheifele as the list of names of players who have been snubbed from this team because of what he's been able to do this year. We're not that far removed, Huss, from the narrative around Connor Bedard, and I'll never forget, Biz Nasty, Paul Bissonnette kind of like carrying the torch a little bit on this about his inability to forecheck, right? It was like last year that people were questioning whether this guy was not capable of being in the NHL, by no means that way, but whether his ability to defend, his give-a-care meter was being questioned, right? And so I wonder if this is not, I don't think it's because of his age, because of his, lack of experience, but because Macklin Celebrini's on the roster, I think this is the way of Team Canada, just kind of maybe because of your point, Huss, he's going to be available for a lot more tournaments down the road here, assuming the NHL stays in the Olympics, that maybe this is a little bit of a, dare I suggest, wake-up call for him to continue to play the way he's playing and not get fat after one, what's been an awesome season, obviously, for the young player.
Yeah, listen, I mean, last year was a really tough season for Bedard. We all saw it. He ended up, basically taking a little bit of a step back offensively. The team was terrible. But man, he came out with such a great start this year, and I think was clearly making a case that he was one of the best Canadians in the National Hockey League. And, then he got hurt. And if they had said, the injury had played into it, I would have said, okay, well, that sort of makes sense. But when Doug Armstrong very clearly in the press conference said, you know what, this was not made due to any injuries or anything like that. It was about. Did
he say that specifically about Bedard, or did he say that about the roster in general?
I think he was asked a question about Bedard.
Okay.
And again, they said that they didn't want to really talk about the guys that didn't make the team. They wanted to talk about the guys that did make it.
Because how can the injury not play a factor? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I think to the point
it was way
it's like
harder to say no.
Would you have felt better if they were like, yeah, the injury kind of played a role in all this? I guess you kind of said you would, but to me, I think you're looking ahead, not behind. So you're not going to say, kind of air your business on why you chose players or why you didn't choose players, because the headline then becomes, well, injury plays a role in it. Then he's got to talk about how the injury and how, had he not suffered the injury, do you think he would have played in this tournament? Like, to me, it's limiting storylines outside of the guys that actually did make the roster. But who knows?
Morrissey, of course, will be representing the Jets. We'll hear Kyle Connor and Connor Hellebuck's names announced, officially Friday morning on the Today Show when the USA is mentioned. Just quickly on the blue line, this is the group from the Four Nations plus Harley, who, of course, was the late ad. There was so much talk about Matthew Schaefer, speaking of young phenoms that could be on the team. I really thought that he would be the eighth defenseman, even if he wasn't playing and dressing in the game, to have a guy that is going to be, let's face it, the mainstay of the Canadian blue line for the next 15 years, along with Cale Makar, who's obviously now, 8-9 years into his NHL career. But they went with Harley, who certainly by what they've done on the ice this year, I don't think measures up personally to what Schaefer's done. How much does this have to do with the fact that these were the guys that won us the gold medal last year and we're going to roll with them again? Like, I can make a great argument that Jacob Chychrun is certainly one of the top 8 Canadian defensemen with the season that he's had this year as well.
Yeah, he's another guy, I think. I think that's exactly what they did. I think if, went with the model, if it's not, if it's not broken, let's not try to fix it.
Okay, so here's my question. Here's the question. If Jordan Binnington doesn't make one of those circus saves in overtime, how different is this roster? Because let's face it, that was a millimeter one way or the other.
You're talking about obviously the Four Nations final here?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it entirely has to do with his performance at Four Nations. Are you kidding me? And this is the thing. I don't have a problem with that. I don't look at Jordan look, the Canadians, unlike our friends to the south of us in the US, have a bit of a goalie problem, Huss. So it's not like there's a bunch of guys ahead of Binnington that are just ripping it away from him. And I get recency bias. And I get the importance of, kind of right now how a goalie is playing and all those things. But at the same time, I also put a lot of stock into what goalies have done when the lights are the brightest. And I have no problem with Jordan Binnington being on there.
No. But my question is, if Binnington doesn't make one of those crazy saves, how different is the blue line? How different is the guys that are coming back from a gold medal winning team potentially one that was won by that much?
Potentially for sure, Huss, but I still think, Canada doesn't have the D line that maybe they used to have. They still have a solid D line. And I think, you could add Bouchard to that list. And I know he's a polarizing player and, in his ability to win you a game and lose you a game in the same period. But I don't
trust that guy.
For sure. But I also think I didn't want to sound like a broken record. I heard Connor say it earlier. I heard Marty, lament it a little bit. But yeah, I think Matt Schaefer would have been a great story and would have been a guy. Here's the thing. He's a guy who is averaging close to 25 minutes a game. He is putting in the time. He's scoring the points. He's got the swagger and confidence, much like Macklin Celebrini has. And I just felt with the, when you have the positions, here's the thing, Huss, I try to put it in a spot, if worst case scenario, if you will, right? Happens in first of all, if you're kind of dipping into your excess players, I'm not saying that's an issue because Team Canada, other teams in this tournament, they have deep rosters. So it's not your 7th D man is just light years worse than your 6th. But at the same time, so say there's a few injuries or a couple injuries in Team Canada. What is the problem with putting in a young player who's hungry, who's competitive, who's logging close to 25 minutes a game, who is pretty much giving the New York Islanders any shot they have this year? What's wrong with putting him in? I don't understand that. To me, that feels like the biggest snub, and not just from a production standpoint, but also from a good story standpoint. It would have been really cool to see a young Canadian, a guy who, to your point, Haas, will be flanking Canada's blue line for years and years to come in several Olympics here, assuming he can continue the pace and play he's at. It just feels like this would have been a really cool opportunity for him to get a taste of it early on, given what he's been able to do.
Shout out to T. Kona Pauly. Pauly has always generous with the super chats, but this is a beauty. A $43 super chat on behalf of Demand Tom Wilson and his Gordie Howe Hattie celebrating his Team Canada selection today. Happy New Year, all. Happy New Year to you, T. Kona Pauly.
I go T. Kona.
Take it easy at the spike tonight with the rest of the great people of Transcona. Usually gets a little loose there on most nights, especially New Year's Eve. Well, listen, this is going to be fun. We'll be talking about it for the next month or so, and then we get going. Final game for the Jets is the 4th, and then things get going at the Olympic Games on the 6th. A couple days after that, the Olympic hockey tournament begins, and we'll be pissed off at one or two guys weren't on the team today, and then it's all in on the team taking on the world's best in what should be arguably maybe the greatest tournament we've ever seen. Just quickly before we go, latest on the Bombers. Tui Eli's back. A couple more signings. I mean, What are you hearing? Do you think it'll be busier? Is this kind of a quiet time before we go to Costa Rica and really get to chop it up before CFL free agency early at the beginning of February?
Well, clearly the Bombers are just as excited as you and I are, Huss, to take off later, in January. I was going to say later this month. I was about to do what I cursed you for at the beginning and suggest today's already over. But yeah, I think, this is where I think it kind of speeds up here, Huss, right? We're getting closer to legal tampering time. And then of course, the free agent market opens. So I do think there's going to be there's still some work to be done. Obviously the Bombers are catching up to some other teams and the contracts they're making. They're prioritizing certain guys and looks like they got a good chunk of guys coming back. The salary cap will be really interesting, Huss, because to find out who went over the salary cap this year. And I did some Googling, and I guess we don't find that out till March. So after kind of all this stuff kind of came and went, comes and goes, I should say. But it'll be interesting just because of the new salary cap. And I bring that up because there could be a rise in the salary cap again this year, right? As they figure out revenues and decision making as far as how they want to spend whatever advantages that leads to the players and other stakeholders.
Hey, you know what? Doing it for a guy Ticona, he always wants to know about Elgersma. Obviously, if it happens, it happens. But what is the time frame? Like, at what point, if it is going to happen, when will it happen? This is week 18 in the NFL. The season is over for everyone that's not in the playoffs as of Sunday.
I think you got to put yourself in Elgersma's position, and the timeline is very fluid, right? Because he's a young player, and you want to have tape, right? Because you get to a certain point where what you were able to do in college and what you were able to do in tryout and workout camps and exhibitions and stuff, and we all know how Taylor performed with Green Bay, put himself, raised his stock, to say the least, right? Didn't put him in a position where he was being, clamored for and whatever. But I do think, you kind of need to be a bit self-aware. So on two different phases. First of all, the NFL phase, still very young, right? And right now, NFL teams, when you look at a guy like Taylor Elgersma, are looking at his size and his age. They're not looking at the few reps he's going to get in the CFL and the game tape and whatever. Obviously, that stuff would help if he had it, but they're looking at his raw abilities, his raw stats, whether that's in college or his physical stats, right? That's going to give him the opportunity, word of mouth, all that stuff. So you kind of have to realize, well, he's still a young kid. He's still in that age where they're not, they're still thinking about maybe taking a flyer in workouts. How much longer do you have before film starts to matter, right? And I think Taylor Elgersma is getting closer to that. Now, I do think he's going to take all of this opportunity here in time throughout the winter, right? Because it's not like he's coming to Winnipeg and signing a $400,000 deal and be giving starter money. That's the other part of the self-awareness. And I think that's where sometimes, and I'm not saying that Taylor Elgersma thinks the CFL is a low league and that he can walk into it. In fact, I think he doesn't think that at all. He knows the hill ahead of him, whether that's the NFL or the CFL, and becoming a professional football player. But again, he can kind of wait that out and then come to Winnipeg and be, the future quarterback here. Obviously, a lot of that hinges on where Zach Collaros is. I'm not saying Zach is writing his ticket for the next X amount of years here, but clearly he's the starting quarterback in 2026. And then what happens after that? Personally, in my opinion, I think Taylor Elgersma, as long as he's getting a good idea that the NFL, those bites are kind of, coming and going and aren't really leading to anything, I think it would be really important or really prudent of him to try to get to Winnipeg this year, work under Zach Collaros, and speed up that, that timeline of being a starting quarterback in the Canadian Football League, assuming that's where Taylor and his representation views himself eventually. Right now, he views himself as an NFL quarterback, practice roster guy with a chance to, make the dream. Coming over to the CFL, he's not going to be a guy who's going to come in and get an opportunity to be a starting quarterback right away. It's going to take that time, and that's why I think it would be so valuable for a guy like him to come into the locker room, work under Zach Collaros as he winds up his career, so that, again, that whatever timeline the Bombers have in play, assuming, because the Bombers aren't looking at Taylor Elgersma right now and being like, he's 100% our quarterback. Like, they need to get to these certain milestones, but they obviously envision him as a guy who can be in that position, so he'd get every opportunity as a backup quarterback. And I'd argue, Huss, more so than a Terry Wilson, because you can look at the situation in Winnipeg and go, who gives a crap if he ends up making the Bombers or is the second guy? What's he going to get? Might not barely get much preseason, and was going to get a couple reps at the end of the year when the season's kind of said and done, and hey, maybe even gets into the Grey Cup for a couple plays. But that's really been the life of Terry Wilson here in Winnipeg, who hasn't got much of a shot. I think it would be different under with Taylor Elgersma. I think he would get more opportunity. He would go in late games, I think, if the Bombers were up a bunch or down a bunch, to speed up that development, because while I do think he's a ways away, I do think he has those intangible, those size, right, those metrics that make him at the very least a promising and surely intriguing prospect. And if the sooner he comes to the CFL, the sooner he can work under Zach Collaros, the better for him. He knows the Canadian game, obviously. That extra work with an experienced quarterback in a CFL locker room would bode really well for his future aspirations of being a starter for Winnipeg.
Hammer, have a great New Year's Eve and a happy New Year. I'll be back, and I'll see you Wednesday for our final qualifier tourney, where people can try and take us out for the extra bounty. And then January 12th, we'll find out who is coming to Costa Rica for our Cool Bet Poker tourney. Again, Wednesday, Jan 7, 8 p.m. Your last chance to be in the top 4 to win a ticket to the January 12th final, and the winner on that night will be joining with us a couple weeks later down in Costa Rica, courtesy of our friends at CoolBet. Have a great one, man. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Huss. I haven't been talking quite as big a game, Huss. I know you introduced me as 3-time champ. Well, I've been out of the money the last 2 tournaments. Got skunked by what I believe is a good friend of mine, and Andrew Blanchette. Blanchette was his name. I didn't have the stomach to message him, because he had gassed me after I had pocket queens and he had ace king, and he hit trip aces. So it was destined for him, not for me. But I'm looking forward to getting in that last qualifier. If you haven't checked that out, it's a really cool opportunity. Puts you in a spot to hang out with me and Huss for a week. I promise you, if you think you like what we get up to on these back and forth, you'll really appreciate 7 days.
I haven't even told you about a couple of
us.
very, very positive developments, which I'll keep for off the air on all this.
Beautiful.
You have a great one, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, my friend. We'll talk soon, and Happy New Year's to everybody. Have a safe end to 2025 and an awesome start to 26. We'll see you next year.
Right on. Jake from CoolBet's coming up in just a couple of minutes. Do want to get into our Clean Line lines for tonight's game, brought to you by our friends at Clean Line Heating, Plumbing, and Cooling. Of course, Clean Line wishes you all a very happy New Year, and know that from January 1st right till to December 31st, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, Clean Line has you covered for emergency services with the best in plumbing, heating, and electrical services. Leaders now in the plumbing industry, as well as heating and cooling for 40 years, locally owned, and now a great partner of ours here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, and of course the official plumbing service of your Winnipeg Jets. We'll get to that in just a minute. Also, shout out to our friends at Boston Pizza. I know the BPs will be busy over the next few days. You've got all the New Year's festivities and, of course, NFL playoff action, Winnipeg Jets hockey. It is the place to go to get together with your gang for the big game. Enjoy all those great Boston Pizza favorites. And if you are staying at home, you can always order online and get it hot and fresh to your door by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. And hey, 2026 is here. Now's maybe a great time to get down to Royal Sports. I mean, we talk so much about all the great fan gear, and we've been talking a lot lately about the Canadian Olympic team. I will tell you that this very cool Canada Hockey hoodie I got for Christmas was from Royal Sports, and Connor, who joined us to talk about the Olympic team earlier, had his hat and hoodie also from Royal. They've got the best in Team Canada gear. So while you get ready for the Olympics, head on down to Royal Sports, not to mention the best in Jets merch, NFL with the playoffs here, hockey, snowboarding. Royal Sports has it all, 750 Pembina Highway. And make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. one other New Year's greeting, of course. A big Happy New Year to all of you from our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, we do have a game tonight, 5:30 puck drop, Jets and the Detroit Red Wings. Of course, the entire hockey world talking about Team Canada and the Olympic teams today, but we do have to get to the clean line lines. One more game, see if the boys can squeeze a win out and maybe get on a bit of a positive run heading into Toronto tomorrow for the New Year's game. But our clean line lines, as always, presented by Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, your local leader for over 40 years and the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. Captain approved. Here are the clean line lines look today. Connor Scheifele, Velarde, Perfetti with Taves and Iafallo, Barron, Lowry, and Pearson, and Niederreiter, Nemetsnikov, and Gustav Nyquist. On the blue line tonight, it's Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello, Dylan Sandberg and Neil Pionk, who I thought had their best game of the season together against the Edmonton Oilers on Monday. And Big Stan and Big Shen, Luke Shen and Logan Stanley on defense. And no surprise, back in his home state of Michigan, Connor Hellebuck will get the nod tonight in net for the Jets, which likely means Eric Comrie will return to the net tomorrow in the New Year's Day game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Jets lines throughout the season on Winnipeg Sports Talk, brought to you by Clean Line. Check them out online at cleanline.ca. All right, before Jake joins us, Remo, we do want to get to our Chubbs Power Sports Power Poll, which is brought to you by our friends at Chuds Power Sports. Happy New Year, Derminator, the Chuds family, all the great people out in Gimli at Chuds. Don't forget, they are hosting, Gimli is hosting the Winnipeg Jets Town Takeover in March. I'm going to have to talk to the Derminator, maybe head out there for the day and take in everything and go see our friends at Chuds. They are at the corner of Highway 8 and 231 in Gimli, and you can find them online at chudspowersports.com for everything they've got cooking up. Great deals right now with snowmobile season well underway. But Reem, let's get to it. It's the snub power poll today. And, we've talked a lot about the goaltending. Listen, the season that both Wedgwood and Blackwood have had with the Colorado Avalanche has been absolutely phenomenal. Certainly Blackwood, I think, body of work over the years, a bit more of an established goaltender as Wedgwood. But either of those guys, with the way that they played this year for the Avalanche, would have been in the mix. That's where we start with 5. Number 4 is Connor Bedard. Bedard was simply phenomenal to start the season. Now, separated or had the shoulder injury about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, has missed 8 games. Blackhawks haven't won, I don't think, since he's left. He will be on many Olympic teams in the future, not on it this year, and not a lot of people talking about him. Matthew Schaefer is the other guy, absolute phenom at 18 years old, playing 25 minutes a night. Many people thought that he would be on, and even if he wasn't playing, I thought it would have been beneficial to Canada in the long term to have him there. But they've elected to go with the 8 players that were part of the blue line for the Four Nations face-off. Number 2 is our own Mark Scheifele. We spent a lot of time talking about Scheif. I don't know what more this guy could have done to be on the team. He's on a 40-goal, 100-point pace this year. Had a career year last year, leading the Jets to a President's Trophy and, a truly heroic performance in the playoffs after the passing of his father. Listen, it probably hits a lot more here than in Winnipeg, but trust me, there's a lot of people around the league surprised that Mark Scheifele did not get the call for Canada. And the number 1 snub, based on his time at the Four Nations, back-to-back Stanley Cups, a Conn Smythe Trophy, is Sam Bennett. Probably the most shocking omission of them all, based on the fact that he was on the team was a big contributor to the Canada gold medal in the Four Nations trophy, in the Four Nations event. And, yes, had a little bit of a slower start. So did a lot of guys that went to back-to-back cup finals, playing well. Panthers are winning again. There you have it. Today's Chud's Power Sports Power Poll for the biggest Team Canada snubs. Remo, just before we bring Jake in, thoughts on this list and 5 individuals who I don't think anyone would have really been surprised if they were included with the group.
Yeah, well, I made the graphic, so I approve of this list. This is a Winnipeg show, so I want to put Scheifele number 1, but the fact that Sam Bennett, I said this earlier, was on the team last year. Jake put this out there on Twitter, like, you're going to bring back Binnington. Maybe it's a bit easier because he's a goalie and there's no, standout.
And he's Doug Armstrong's guy.
Yeah, he's Doug Armstrong's guy. There's no standout goalie. Like, there's no Patrick Waugh. There's no Martin Brodeur. There's no Hall of Fame goalie out there. But if you're going to bring him back, I don't know why you're not bringing back Sam Bennett. Again, scored a huge goal in the final. Conn Smythe winner, back-to-back Cup champ. Checks a lot of boxes. Plays that hard-nosed physical game. I guess Tom Wilson, they felt Tom Wilson passed him in that area. Or, Cirelli is John Cooper's guy. So there's some politics at play here. But Sam Bennett, the odd man out, and did what Horvat. They mentioned his versatility as well. They like his face-offs. Maybe Horvat was the one who passed him. That's again, Marty said this as well, and I said it too. Like, imagine the phone call that they had to tell him that he's not on the team. Like, that's a tough call to make.
The best thing that Marty said in his appearance, if you joined us late, go back and watch Marty Biron. He was phenomenal. Was the conversation with Jordan Binnington and Doug Armstrong, and he said basically, if Doug Armstrong doesn't put Binnington on his team, you probably have to trade him.
Yes.
And listen, that's still, I think, a possibility considering where St. Louis is right now. But there's our Chud's Power Sports. Shout out to the Chud's people. Chud's Power Sports.
It's funny during that press conference, they asked Armstrong about Binnington's season. He's like, that's not a Binnington problem. That's a problem with the Blues. And I'm like, isn't he the GM of that team in front? Like, there he's like shitting on his own
said, we're
team.
not very good. We're not very good this year. And then made a point of saying, you think about that game in Florida last week, his save percentage wasn't really good, but there was 3 tip-ins.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? There's going to be tip-ins at the Four Nations. I mean, he just has been one of the simply worst goalies in the league this year. I hope that Thompson gets the starting nod, but we will see whether that happens. Great stuff, Remo. Thanks for getting that up, the Chud's Power Sports Power Poll. But let's bring in, we were just talking about Jake's comments online about Team Canada. We'll get to the NFL in just a minute. Early Happy New Year. Happy New Year's Eve to you, bud. What was your reaction from out east when you saw them roll out our Olympic team?
Yeah, I mean, the group chats were buzzing. Naturally, I think that's the case. No matter who made this team, someone was going to be snubbed. But I think a great one is your guy, Mark Scheifele. Like you said a couple minutes ago, Us, what more does that guy got to do to get a spot on this team? So the Sam Bennett one is baffling to me. The fact that Elliot Friedman has to tweet out, the only big surprise to me is Sam Bennett. That means obviously, by all accounts, he was going to be on this team, and then all of a sudden, the team's announced and he doesn't make it. Now it's clear to me that it's John Cooper pushing for a guy like Anthony Cirelli, and the comments about Cirelli were that, well, him and Hagel play a great penalty kill. It's like, yeah, well, you're bringing a lot of guys that can kill penalties. I don't think without Anthony Cirelli that it's going to be all of a sudden the penalty kill is going to take a hit. A guy like Nick Suzuki, who wasn't on the Four Nations team, can do what Anthony Cirelli does, probably, a little bit better, if I'm being honest. And it's no knock to Cirelli, but the fact that a guy like Sam Bennett, who had 15 goals in the playoffs last year, won the Conn Smythe, has back-to-back Stanley Cups, doesn't make the roster, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then you look at a guy like Bedard, 116-point pace before he went down. Is he on a bad hockey team? And I looked at his plus-minus, and I know that stat isn't it doesn't really tell you a whole lot, but you look at the last 2 years, he's like a minus 36, a minus 40. This year he was a plus 8 on one of the worst teams in the NHL. He's basically playing with, I said to my buddy, a bunch of plumbers. And he was on an absolute torrid pace before he goes down. And then they ask Armstrong about Bedard, and he says, well, the injury actually didn't have an impact. And you know exactly what it is, Huss? Because he didn't go to the World Championships last year, and they take that into account every single time. The first thing they said about Bo Horvat when he got brought up in the press conference was the fact that he went to the World Championships.
Exactly.
And it's no offense to Bo Horvat. He's got 20+ goals. I think he's going to be a great centerman, great faceoff guy for this team. I'm just saying, like, that clearly plays a part. Whether they want to admit it or not, that clearly plays a part in who makes this team.
Yeah, and listen, I remember saying it, with Dusty and with you guys last year. I couldn't believe. I thought Bedard made a big mistake in not going last year, not just because of the Olympics, but I think it could have salvaged, which was a real down year for him. Now, listen, whatever happened in the offseason, he came back ready to go and was brilliant to begin the season. But it would be impossible for him to not think that maybe that was part of him, not getting the benefit of the doubt from Team Canada. Anyways, well, I can't wait to look. I was looking at Coolbet right now. Canada plus 145 to win the gold medal. USA plus 175 to win the gold medal. Sweden plus 500 to win the gold medal. We do have World Juniors tonight, just before we dive into football. Two big games tonight. Sweden and the U.S. The U.S. is minus 128 to win. Sweden is plus 105. Jake, this Canada number is, and listen, it's Canadians that are betting on this. So, yeah, the Canadian number is probably going to be juiced a little much. But when you just think about the games that have been played so far, and particularly the Latvia test, Canada in overtime, Finland smashing them, what was it, 8-0? I have to admit, I'm stunned that this line is minus 345 and Finland is getting plus money on plus 1.5.
Yeah, it's a pretty shocking number, Huss, given it's kind of the marquee matchup, if you want to say, for this group. I know the Czechs have been real solid. They found a way to get it done against Finland in overtime. I don't know if you saw that goal, Huss, between the legs. Pretty disgusting stuff there for Czechia. But, they set it up on New Year's Eve as the marquee matchup of the group. And to be where it is right now, odds-wise, is pretty surprising. And you mentioned, Canadians betting on it. Well, Huss, we got Coolbet Finland as well. And the Finnish love their hockey. So, there's going to be a Finland side of this. If I'm Finnish, I'm probably betting Finland myself. That's pretty good value on the money line. Listen, obviously, I'm not going to bet against Canada. But that plus 1.5 number on Finland isn't too bad. I think obviously they did what they were supposed to do against Denmark, a very weak Denmark team. But the fact that they almost didn't get it done again against Latvia for the second straight tournament is a cause for concern. We'll see what they have tonight against the tougher test of Finland. They haven't had a really tough test. I know, you look at the Latvia score, but that's a team they should blow out every single time, just given, where those two countries are in terms of hockey. It'll be interesting to see what happens tonight, Huss. I feel you on the value. It won't be me betting on Finland, but I might sprinkle some props. That's probably where my eyes will go here for this game.
Well, I mean, that Coolbet's got you covered for the World Juniors. So if you do want to get in before the games tonight, 5:00 start for the U.S. We'll be paying attention to the Jets Red Wings and then immediately flipping over to Canada Finland, which drops the puck at 7:30. But with the weird week, the holiday Thursday, and I'm away for a couple days. And week 18, there's a lot of nothing games, a very difficult week to handicap. We won't have our regular WST winners on Friday, but we'll be back a week Friday with a massive playoff edition before wildcard weekend. But Jake, we did want to take a look at some of these games this week. And, I will say this, the results of week 17, I think, saved week 18 in some ways. There still are some pretty big games, and there's a lot of playoff seeding still to remain out there. Key games, and there's 2 Saturday games. This one not technically for the NFC South, but it is for the Panthers. The Panthers are 2.5-point dogs in Tampa against the Bucks. If Carolina wins, it's over. If Tampa wins, they become the biggest New Orleans Saints fans around, because if the Falcons beat the Saints, and the Falcons are 3-point favorites in that game, then Carolina wins. We'll have an 8-9 team hosting a playoff game. But it's key to know that is not just a win and in. If Tampa wins, they still need New Orleans to beat the Atlanta Falcons. Saturday night game, Tampa minus 2.5 in that game, by the way. Saturday night game, probably the game of the week. Seattle at San Francisco. Seattle's a 1-point favorite in this game, which is interesting. Winner gets the 1 seed. Loser, if Seattle loses, they'll be the 5 seed. If San Fran loses and the Rams win, San Fran will slide from a potential 1 seed all the way to 6. Important to note that if San Francisco wins this game, they're at home for the rest of the way because the Super Bowl is in Santa Clara and they had a home field throughout the playoffs, including the Super Bowl. Jags need to win to hold down their spot, in the seeding. They're a 12-point favorite. Packers aren't playing anybody. Vikings are now 7.5-point favorites in that game. Packers are locked in the 7 hole. You got the Bills who need to win, but to stay where they're at, they're 7-point favorites against the Jets. The Bears will want to win to stay in the 2 seed. They're 3-point favorites at home against the Lions. Chargers are not playing Justin Herbert. They're laying down. Denver just needs to win to lock up the home field. They're a 12-point favorite. The game I'll be at, Chiefs-Raiders, is simply about draft position. And then the one game, and they always do this, Sunday nighter on Week 18, it is a win and in game. Winner of this will be the 4 seed, win the AFC North. It is the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ravens, potentially without Lamar, we'll see whether he can play, are still 3.5-point favorites against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 3.5 is wild to me for that game, to be honest, with the Steelers being at home. To me, I mean, this is almost begging you to take the Steelers, which does make me a little nervous. We saw what Derrick Henry was doing. Jake, as far as like the meaningful games before we get to some incentives, where are you at on the card for this week?
Yeah, I peeked at these 3 yesterday, Huss. Those 3 big ones: Carolina, Tampa, Seattle, San Fran, and then Baltimore, Pittsburgh. And I'll be honest, I lean with all 3 underdogs. I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have not been playing good football for nearly 2 months now. They lost to the Miami Dolphins last week, and if they didn't lose to the Dolphins, they'd probably be in a lot better position to win and into the playoffs. The Panthers, it's a tough one last week because I think they would be in a much better position as well if they were able to pull off the win. But for me, I just think the Panthers have been playing a little bit better than the Bucs, and it just feels like a lost season for the Bucs. Now, that being said, they could find a way to win, and Shuck could do it one more time and take down the Falcons, and they could be in. But I don't know if you're a Bucs fan that you're really excited, even if the Bucs found a way to get in at this point, about what they're going to show in the playoffs. So I lean Panthers in that one. I look to the Saturday nighter, Seahawks at 49ers. The Seahawks have been awesome all year, both sides of the ball, offensively, defensively, even more. But I'll tell you what, when we saw Sam Darnold in a win for a big game last year against the Detroit Lions when he was on the Minnesota Vikings, it was a stinker from old Sammy. He did have the big win over LA to get themselves in this spot to win the division and have the 1 seed, but they're playing for a whole lot. And San Fran, to me, with Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy, is a team that's been there, done that. I think the way they've been scheming lately, they have just been cruising along, no problem. For a good chunk of the season. I know the schedule has been pretty light. I think that's something we talked about early on in the season. Something about San Fran that I like, and it's more of like a not trusting factor with Darnold.
Just quickly on that game, like the Seahawks are a 1-point favorite. I was expecting the Niners to be 1.5 or 2-point favorites in this game.
Right.
And then I kind of think about just how badly they got gashed by the Bears. Mm-hmm. And to me, the concern is about the Niners defense. Like I don't know if you can compare the Bears defense to the Seahawks defense. So like, I'm not expecting the Niners just to get a touchdown on every play, on every drive, like they did against Chicago for the better part of the game on Sunday night. And I initially was sort of really leaning Niners on this. Oh, they're at home, they're going to win. And I think more about the body of work, and I get it. I mean, Sammy saw the ghost last year in the biggest game of the season. This is a huge redemption opportunity for Darnold. And even if they win this game, we'll still be saying the same thing when they play at home as the 1 seed. But I think I'm actually leaning Seahawks on this one. What about the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game?
Yeah, same thing. Like I'm still leaning the dog there, and you kind of said it, Huss. They're almost begging us to take that 3.5, and maybe we're fools for it. But Baltimore, like I know Derrick Henry's gotten going. Is Lamar out in this game? I haven't looked at the injury report for that game.
Is
it going to be Huntley?
They won't make a decision until Sunday on this. If there's any chance that Lamar can play, he will play. But to be honest, Huntley's actually been very, very serviceable for them. To me, the reason why this is 3.5 is that DeKalen, a.k.a. DK Metcalf, with the 2-game suspension for taking a swing at the Lions fan that called him by his government name, he, as much as like he can be kind of hit and miss, they have nothing at the receiver position after him. They put up 6 points against the Browns. Now, I know the Browns defense is better than the Ravens, but I do wonder what they're going to have in the tank offensively for Baltimore in this game. Apparently, TJ Watt might play, and that's big, big, big for Pittsburgh. I mean, he can flip a game on his own. I mean, I have to just go with the Pittsburgh at plus 3.5 with what the number is. I do think this will be a close game. But the fishy line meter certainly started going when I saw that it was 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those things where it's like, is the whole world going to be on the Steelers? And it's one of those games where the Ravens take care of business. I want to pull a stat here, Huss, because this game always sets up for the underdog. Since 2005, the underdog in this series, 30, 12, and 3 against the spread, 71% clip. And the underdog is 25, 7, and 3 against the spread when Tomlin faces John Harbaugh. So, yeah, I mean, the underdog has owned this series regardless of, what you think of the two teams. I don't know if that matters in this instance with a win and get in, but I just have a hard time. Steelers at home. I think it's going to be a gross game if I had to guess. You saw what the Steelers did last week, like you mentioned, without DK. The offense was very stale and lost to the Browns in a game that they really, really needed. So listen, I think Tomlin has the guys ready, and if they don't find a way to win, maybe they find a way to get inside the number with just having the hook, Huss. I can't get away from it. I can't get away from it. I think it was on Patty's card too.
Yeah, he is too. And I was looking at what Pat had put together. He's tied up today, but sent over some of the picks. I got into this last night, and I did a ticket with the Saints plus 3. The Texans, I took it to 9.5. It was at 10.5 at the time. I think it's at 10 right now. And then the Titans plus 12. I'm not sure whether Jacksonville doesn't just call the dogs off, or maybe, as long as they're going to win, they'll be good. They know they're playing next week. So I think this could be a game that, maybe is in and around 10 points. The other games that I liked, the Bears minus 3. I put it to minus 2.5 for this one. The Vikings, if you can get them at under a touchdown, I think that number's actually gone to 7.5 right now. And then, of course, the Bills in their last game at the Ralph, they're a 7-point favorite. This is not a normal game, knowing that they're going to play the next week. It could be Mitch Trubisky from the second series on. I still think that's enough to cover against the New York Jets. What do we think about? I just put this in. Let me just go back to it. What do we think about Pittsburgh plus 3.5? That's obviously the anchor because it's the night game. What do we think about the Bills minus 6.5 and taking the Saints to plus 3.5?
Yeah, listen, I don't mind. I've been a Shuck guy since kind of he got going here, and he's unreal. Like, he's unbelievable.
Win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Well, and I put a tweet out there yesterday, Huss. Him and Tet, it's a 2-horse race right now, and Tet obviously has a monster game against the Bucs, and if he goes off and has a big game and they win, it'll probably end up being Tet, just because he had a larger sample size on the season. But Shuck has come on here late, winning football games. I think if you're a Saints fan, you're pretty excited for next year, because I think you can go into the season saying Tyler Shuck's our number one quarterback, and we can kind of focus on adding pieces around him to make us a serviceable football team. So, I'm with you there. That was what, Bills, Saints, and Steelers, you said?
So Bills -6.5, Saints plus 3.5, Steelers plus 3.5. The Saints numbers minus 130, but if you put that all together, plus 495. So after we boost it, it'll be well over 5-1. I love that. We'll put that together for for our partner parlay for the week, and that'll be up in the Cool Bet promos. By the way, just quickly on the odds, there's still futures up right now, and just on what Jake was just talking about, Ted McMillan minus 122 for the offensive rookie of the year, Tyler Shuck plus 115. If you like, and listen, the Falcons as a favorite, I'm not sure they've covered a single spread this year. If you like the Saints to keep this momentum going and win this game, I think Tyler Shuck at plus 115 is huge, because even if Carolina wins, we'll be focused on that game for their playoff fate. And Shuck right now at plus 115, I think, is still pretty good value. And by the way, update on the MVP. It looked like we'd wrapped it up and given it to Matt Stafford 2 weeks ago. Should have maybe backed it up with the Drake May bet, because Drake May is now minus 435, and Matt Stafford is 3-1 to win the MVP. So those are the awards. But listen, before we go, fill us in, because there's going to be lots of options for props. I think some people might be liking props this week better than actual bets. This is last call. Last call for incentives. This is a huge part of Week 18 of guys that are close to getting some big bonuses. I know you've been digging around. What are the key incentives that might impact some player props for the weekend?
Yeah, listen, if you're looking for incentives, I think get out your notepad right now, because I got a big, long list. We'll start with the big games, the games that matter, and some numbers that are already up on the board. You'll notice a lot of the props aren't up yet. I asked our guys about it. They're coming. It's just a matter of, they don't know who's playing right now.
Yeah.
A lot of books you'll find don't have a lot of the player props, so you kind of just got to keep an eye and wait for these to roll out. Sam Darnold, the guy needs 150 pass yards to get another $500,000, $500K. I think, you can't really bet that, but he needs 3 passing TDs for another $500K, Huss. So, you look at his 2 passing TD number against the San Fran defense, lit up last week against Chicago, like you mentioned already. 2 passing TDs minus 119, 3 pass TDs plus 299. You look at another game there, Carolina-Tampa. Rico Dowdle needs a touchdown for $250K. His anytime touchdowns plus 125. He's at the top of the board. And then you start going down the list of some of the games that don't matter. So Tony Pollard, for instance, needs 66 rush yards for $250K. I imagine his number will probably come in and around there. People will probably jump on that as soon as that rolls out. He also needs 2 rushing touchdowns for another $200K. That one might be a bit of a longer shot, but something you might want to get a piece of. Khalil Shakir, Patty tried to jump on him a couple of weeks ago. He still is 1 receiving touchdown away from $150K in a game that really doesn't matter for the Bills. So, maybe you jump on that. 2 receiving touchdowns for $300K for Shakir. Dawson Knox, 6 receptions for another $100K and a touchdown for an additional $100K. A guy like Joey Bosa, he didn't practice yet this week, so I don't know if he's going to play, but he's a sack away from $250K. Your guy, Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, is a touchdown away from $750K. I tried to jump on him a couple weeks ago. It didn't hit, but maybe you'll be there. Huss, if you can get a ticket on Brown, probably get a decent number, and maybe you'll be there to see that one live. Keenan Allen, reception machine, 6+ receptions for $750K. I think that one's probably a good bet. Diggs has 2 big incentives to hit. I don't know if he's going to play this week with what's going on.
He's had a busy week.
There's a lot going on in the Stephon Diggs world, but he's 8 receptions away from $500,000, 130 receiving yards away from $1 million. So if he does play, maybe a big game for Diggs could go a long way for him. Another guy on New England, Hunter Henry's 5 receptions away from $250,000, $250K. And then going down the list, one other guy that I have my eye on, Deebo Samuel, 93 receiving yards away from 450K. I mean, that's not too bad for Deebo. He hasn't had a monster game this year, but Josh Johnson fed him pretty well last week. If he can hit a couple big ones, 93 is probably doable. And then a long shot for him, 2 touchdowns for 250K. So there's more out there. If you go look up, NFL incentives for week 18, you can find people have listed them out. They're not all going to hit, but there's a few I think we can get some decent value on. Huss, I don't know about you. I said Patty has said he would be down for an incentive parlay. Was there any of those that stood out to you? Okay, let's hear what you got.
Well, definitely the Dowdle touchdown.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree.
Definitely the Shakir touchdown.
Okay.
I do like the Pollard number of 66. Like, I mean, do we want to just say Pollard 67 or more rush yards and touchdowns for those other 2 guys?
Yeah, so I think he needs 66. So we'll just go Pollard, let's just say 67. It might be easier to get 60. Well, we only need 66 though. I mean, I guess it doesn't. 67. Does he have a number out yet? I don't think so, right?
I've got the games right here. Titans.
I think a lot of the props weren't online yet.
Yeah, no, just still waiting. They've got passing
TD score
right now. But
okay.
yeah,
if
so 66 is again. Okay, well, yeah, let's just do the 66. Like Pollard to get that incentive, and then an anytime touchdown for Rico Dowdle and an anytime touchdown for Khalil Shakir.
Done. That'll be our incentive parlay for week 18. Why not?
Beautiful. Yeah, the props are a lot harder this week just with who's going to play, guys that might be out. But very clearly, I mean, Dowdle is a big part of Carolina anyways on a regular day. They need to win. He'll get the looks. The Bills, I think, are going to definitely try. Shakir's been maybe their most important receiver, and even if it's not Josh Allen there, they will feed him, and Tony Pollard be good. Anyone that was on, just a quick update, and this goes back to WST winners like at the beginning of the season. I've been riding this Dak Prescott most passing yards prop. He now has, I believe, a 28. He's like about 25, 28 yards ahead of Matt Stafford. He, of course, was 12-1. So if you had that 12-1 number on Dak, as long as he can stay ahead of Matt Stafford, he should cash that. And depending on what the situation is with the Saturday night game, the Rams might know that they are already locked in to the 6th seed. So I think that could, maybe determine whether or not Matt Stafford plays very much. So we will see all about that. But I know you'll be firing out lots on the socials over the course of the next few days coming out of the thing. Just before we go, tons of bowl games coming up over the next little bit. Jake, tomorrow for New Year's Day, Alabama, Indiana. Indiana was 6.5 points. Now they're 7-point favorites. We got Mississippi, Georgia, Oregon, and Texas Tech. And then tonight, Miami and Ohio State going at it at 6:30. You're sort of the go-to guy for college football. Is there a pick or two against the spread or money line that catches your eye?
Yeah, I mean, I liked Miami. We were 9.5 earlier today. Now to 8.5. That's tonight. I'm starting to get a little worried that you're losing the value, but don't mind Miami on the spread. Looking at tomorrow's games, I don't know. I think they're begging you to take Bama. I think Indiana's just flat out a better football team than they are. Bama had the big win against Oklahoma last week, but they're not the Nick Saban Alabama that we've seen in the past. They could absolutely prove me wrong, but I think I'm going to jump on Indiana at -7. And then probably Georgia in the night game, 8 o'clock against Ole Miss. I think that's a team that's really come on. And if anyone's going to give Ohio State a true run at this thing, might be coming out of the SEC, and it might be the Georgia Bulldogs. So I think I'm going to jump on the 2 favorites tomorrow in the later games. Tonight, I'm going to jump on the dog in Miami and see if we can get a couple winners.
What's the big New Year's plan for Showtime Jake tonight?
Nothing crazy tonight. Just going to hang out with the girlfriend and her family, maybe have a few drinks, Nothing too wild. Probably lock in some of these bets for the weekend, see what we can get done, and
Her family will love that.
Get ready for a nice day off tomorrow. I mean, we'll definitely watch the juniors tonight. You know, watch Canada against Finland, see what they got, see if they can capture the top seed in that group, and hopefully not another disappointing finish like we've seen the last couple of years now.
Good stuff. Well, listen, let's get those up. So we've got our incentive parlay is going to be Rico Dowdle touchdown, Khalil Shakir touchdown, and Tony Pollard 66 rushing yards. And our partner parlay will be boosted up over 5-1. Bills -6.5, Saints +3.5, Steelers +3.5. And I am already looking forward to 9 days from now, our first playoff WST winners for Wild Card Weekend, where we start trying to just run the table on the playoffs. And the playoffs this year, I mean, again, we've talked a lot about it this week. Never seen an odds board like this right now with so many teams basically in the mix and no real clear favorite. I mean, the Rams have been the favorite. The Seahawks are right now. That could change depending on what happens this weekend. But there's a lot of teams with their hat in the ring that I think will believe they'll have a chance to win. Jake, Happy New Year to you, Patty, and the whole gang. I will talk to you next week when I'm back. Have a great one, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to everybody. And one thing before I go, I think Mark Scheifele anytime goal tonight makes a lot of sense, Huss, with the old snub play. We do have a boost as well in the exclusives. Scheifele goal, Jets win, the Canadian snub show or snub job or something like that. I put that one in the exclusive. So
I love it. I love it. Okay. There's actually a couple other ones. There's and I'm feeling good about this Jets. If they play the way they have the last couple games, they'll win. We got Take Flight, Connor to score, Morrissey to get a point, Jets to win, +475. And yes, the Canadian snub job, Scheifele to score and Jets to win, +325. I'm locking that in right now. Have a great one, pal. Thanks again, and Happy New Year.
You too. Thanks, boys.
There's Jake Boland-Moss. Don't forget, next Friday we'll be back with the regular WST winners. Next Wednesday, 8 p.m., Jan 7, the final qualifier for the Costa Rica trip, 8 p.m. Mark it in, coolbet.com. Click on poker, go to tournaments, search WST, and get in on the tourney. All right, let's get Remo back in here. Remo, how are you feeling about this Jet game tonight? What do you think about the Canadian snub job exclusive?
Yeah, well, if someone's going to score for the Jets, we know who's getting their goals. So
it's either Scheifele or Connor.
So yes. And, Jay Fresh put out this graphic yesterday that you may want to shield your eyes from, just like the 82-game point pace of all of the Jets.
Incredible.
This is very gross. I'm going to bring this up now, so shield your eyes. But here it is. So Connor and Scheifele on pace for 100 points over 82 games. Then Velarde, 73. The next closest, Morgan Barron at 34. And Nito Niederreiter at 33. Like, that's just not going to get it done, Huss. So Scheifele and Connor are carrying this team on their back. And yeah, if you're going to bet anyone to score, that is who I would bet. I am doing a daily fantasy lineup, and Hellebuck was very cheap in net. It's in Michigan. The Jets are playing well lately. It is New Year's. I'm looking to enjoy myself tonight, so I'm going to put some entertainment dollars down on the Jets.
Yeah, do you have any big New Year's plans?
We're having some friends over, and our kids' friends, friends who have kids the exact same age as our kids, and my wife's making dinner upstairs.
Oh wow!
We'll put on the Jets game, maybe the juniors if it's going south. It does start at 5:30, and I think everyone's gonna be out of here at 7:30, 8, and then I don't know. My wife's going to bed early, and I don't know. Maybe I'll put some parlays on the Oilers and enjoy myself. I'm not. I don't know. Play some video games. One thing I have to do is upload that Marty Biron conversation as a separate video.
He was so good.
I'm probably gonna do that actually. He nailed it. I'm so grateful that Marty came on. I was watching him on the TSN pre-show, so it was amazing that he took the time in between shoveling the lake effect snow in Buffalo to come on and talk with you for an extended period. That was incredible. A story about saying no to Lanny McDonald. He's like, yeah, my contract. I'm getting married. He's like, what was I thinking? It was the world's. It was Lanny McDonald. It's pretty funny, but I guess at the time, you don't want to go and get hurt and risk a next contract. So I do get that, but looking back now, it's easy to say I should have gone.
Well, the good thing for him is that he was asked again next year, and he did go. So
he did go.
Sometimes that doesn't always come after the fact. But yeah, that was great with Marty right off the bat. Gang, it has been an amazing year. What can I say? We can't thank you enough for all the support. Huge thanks to all the sponsors that have been with us every step of the way and continuing into 2026. But all of our podcast listeners, everyone that's with us every day in the chat, we are greatly appreciative of the support that we continue to have a blast every day talking sports and Winnipeg sports with you here on our channel, the podcast feed, the live YouTube stream, and more. I want to wish you all a very happy New Year. Have a great night tonight. Please do it safely. Don't drink and drive. Enjoy New Year's Day tomorrow. I'm away for a couple days. I'll be back on Tuesday. Our guy Connor will step in with Remis for the Friday show, which of course will be recapping both tonight against Detroit and tomorrow against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Setting up the Jets in Ottawa on the weekend, a huge NFL weekend where everything will be settled for the playoffs. And the guys will be back with you on Tuesday. I'll be flying, and I'll be back on Monday, I should say. I'll be back on Tuesday as the Jets begin a monster home schedule at Canada Life Center, taking on the first of 5 straight at home against the Vegas Golden Knights. That is going to do it for us today and for the year of 2025. For Connor Rabchak, for Michael Remis, myself, of course, Liz Hood, who does so much great stuff on our channel as well. Wishing you all the best in 2026. Have a very happy new year. The boys will be in on Friday to get you ready for the weekend with the latest on the Winnipeg Jets and so much more. Have a great one, and pop one for all of us at midnight tonight going into 2026. We'll see you next year, folks.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.